All right, it's 1 o'clock. So I'll call the meeting to order for Tuesday, May 21st. I think we've got 100% because I saw Councillor Jolly online. So yes, she is. So we have 100% attendance. Sorry. Councillor Mackay, would you like to make a motion to adopt the agenda?
Sure, I would. That the May 21, 2024 agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Call for the vote. Voting's closed. That passes unanimously. Number 3 on our agenda is presentations and delegations and announcements. I have St. Albert Public Schools. I've got Trustee Christy Rouse and Trustee Cheyenne Lavelle-Crouse. Are you both speaking? Okay, so you who wants to go first? You're gonna do it together? Okay.
Renee, you want to clear our screens?
I'll just load your presentation. One moment.
Says we're still voting.
All right, whenever you're ready. Is the mic on up there? Sean, the mic's on up there. Okay, all right, whenever you're ready. Oh, you have a presentation.
Is it okay if we go 10 in total?
Well, you're each 2 people, 5 minutes each, sir.
Okay. We're like a sandwich. She's gonna start, I'll go, and then she'll finish.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you and good afternoon, Mayor Herron, councillors and city staff. I'm here today with Trustee Cheyenne Lavelle-Crouse, and it is our pleasure today to make the annual presentation of the St. Albert Public Schools Capital Plan. As you know, the city is presently conducting a municipal census, and St. Albert Public Schools effectively conducts a census each year with a student enrollment count, which informs the development of the capital plan. For 2023-24 school year, St. Albert Public Schools is serving over 9,550 students, which represents a growth in enrollment of 39% since 2012-13. With St. Albert being a desirable community for families to cultivate their roots, planning for spaces for our students to accommodate rapid community growth is one of the biggest priorities for the school division. With continued growth expected throughout the division, the new Paul Kane High School, which opened to students in January 2023, as phase 1 of our high school accommodation plan, it closed for student registrations for the 2024-25 school year on April 2nd, as capacity has already been reached. This is indicative not only of the attractive places our schools are, but also of the persistent growth and aging of the student population coming of high school age. Therefore, we are tremendously relieved and appreciative of Council's decision at its special meeting last week to make the necessary traffic flow and safety improvements necessary for phase 2 of the high school accommodation plan with the modernization and expansion of Belrose Composite High School to proceed. Over the past year, advocacy through our provincial association and to the province related to our Space for Students priority has included resolving challenges in the Municipal Government Act around reserve land for properly sized school sites, and collaboration with Alberta municipalities for capital funding allocations for school site servicing costs, and some clarification has been sought around Bill 13, the Real Property Governance Act, from a school board context and the way in which it will affect relationships with our municipalities. And this bill just received royal assent last week on Thursday. Our administrations rather have been working diligently towards Alberta Municipal Affairs June 10th, 2025 deadline for joint use planning agreements. And we would like to request to meet as governors again before that agreement is finalized to explore some joint advocacy opportunities to best serve the youngest residents of St. Albert. And now Cheyenne Laval-Krause will get into some of the meat of our capital plan.
Again, thank you everyone for having us today. While we start off the capital plan, although we still have a great need to have a new high school in the northeast area of St. Albert, we actually have shifted our number one priority to have a two-story K-9 in Sherrill. While the city would prefer to have a high school, it currently is too close to Belrose, which can cause extra issues when students traveling from the east now have to travel across St. Albert Trail. And again, priority of safety for our students is number one. So less traveling across the Albert Trail is a greater safe option for our students. We actually also recognize that with the current 25.4 proposed acres and anemones, the city of St. Albert will not have everything set up and ready to go and built at the same time as our high school. Current high school still requires 18 acres, and that will also include 4 acres for a full track, as well as 1.75 acres for a practice football field. Currently, we still do play our games in Real, but we need to have an accessibility for our practice football fields. When it looks at the parking stalls with the June 23rd Cities of St. Albert and Anemone site report, there was a total of 736 parking stalls, included the ones that were attached to the school. To put that into perspective, right now, Paul Kane, which would be equivalent size of the new high school we're looking to build, it has 416 stalls, and 10 of those are barrier-free parking. So when you remove the current 305 parking stalls, we would still be short 111 parking stalls within that site. As a result, the board is continuing to advocate with the option to have municipal affairs being able to increase our municipal reserves up to 15%. But this is why we've decided that a K-9 would best suit that space. We would require about 10 acres for the K-9 site. As we move on to the next size, you can see right now for the new high school, priority is still there. We've already had phase 1, which is the replacement of Belrose. We are now in phase 2. We again, thank you for the approval to increase Belrose by 275 students, as well as make permanent for the 8 modulars that are still there for about 200 students, and then modernize the HVAC and equipment within inside the school. Phase 3 is we are still asking for a new 1,650 student high school in Erin Ridge North, and we continue to advocate to the government to have the service ready sites available, so it comes through a provincial area through infrastructure versus it being onto the city. As we move on to board priorities 3 through 7, we have actually looked at trying to replace our modulars. If you remember last year, I prefer to say the word portable because it sounds older and reminds us of when we were kids. Our division actually has 109, well, formerly 109. We did try to move one last year from Sam. Unfortunately, as we picked it up, it fell apart. So we currently have 108 portables within our school division. And this year we were quite aggressive when we put in our modular request, and we actually requested 48 new portables, 48 new modulars, and 2 modulars that would also be accessible and usable as washrooms, so 50 in total. Unfortunately, we only had 1 approved. So right now, of the 108 modulars, we will only having 1 be replaced. With that being said, when it comes to the modernization, Leo Nickerson is our number 1 priority after our elementary school and our high school. Leo Nickerson actually was, when we did the facility conditions report, they were at a 28.9% of what needed to be modernized. The school actually was built in 1964 and hasn't really had a modernization since. We currently do not even have an elevator within the school. So accessibility for some of our students that may have mobility issues, we really need to be able to not only just upgrade the building, but also make it more accessible for both stories of the building. Wild Rose Elementary School is the next school that we're looking at. It actually has a facility condition index of 35.7. There are With Wild Rose being updated, they did get a few upgrades earlier this year. We had some visitors within the school, but the school does need to have some replacements of not only our modulars, but also making sure that the school is modernized, not only just with electrical, but also with HVAC. We moved to Elmer Gish. Elmer Gish currently is one of our schools that is at 103% capacity. We have 844 students in our 2022 to 2023 enrollment school year, and there are currently 20 modulars and portables that are added. Part of our modernization is to actually go through and replace some of them, some of the modulars and portables that are there, while also making sure that the modernization actually fixes the mechanical systems and making sure that there's best optimizations for the program delivery for our students. As we look at Merrill Martin, they are our second school within our division that also has 20 modulars attached. The modulars have kind of been built out around the school, and with Deer Ridge, it actually is still currently at a 92% utilization. And when we did the facilities index, it was at 17.9%. This is currently we have requested modulars for all of that, actually the schools on the list. And again, Merrill Martin and Gish are the two that actually could use the most. Next, we actually have Hillgrove. Pardon me. Okay. Next, we have Hillgrove, and Hillgrove was the merge of Ronald Rundle and Sir George Simpson. We would like to do a modernization of Ronald Rundle. One of the things we did have the goal was to connect the two buildings. So it currently now is a grade 5 to 9, and we wanted to be able to create a space that's easier access. The cost is 1.8 million, so we have kind of put that on the back shelf. But through the modernization, we know we will be able to achieve what we are looking for. And then, of course, our new school in Riverside. With K-9 school, we need about 10 acres, and there is one school site right now that actually would also act as a great site for Riverside. Christy has touched base of a lot of the remainders of our slides through the capital plan. But again, with the collaboration with the city, we have the ability and opportunity to add libraries and public pools and other options with our schools. So we would love to, again, connect with each of you before we go back to the June 10th meeting. And we would like to be able to help grow and cultivate St. Albert and St. Albert students together. Thank you. And if you have any questions. we'd be
Yeah,
happy to answer.
what's happening on June 10th again? Is that the
June 10th of 2025 with
Is that the JUPA
for the
deadline?
JUPA.
JUPA deadline?
Yeah.
And so I did write that down. You want to meet before the JUPA deadline?
I mean, even if it was this year.
Because I feel
Not
like,
2025.
and I'll ask our staff, I feel like we're gonna get to our agreement long before
Yeah.
the provincial imposed. So I think we should probably meet
Well before.
before
that.
we agree. Okay, and it was mostly on advocacy, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, I'll open it up for questions of our council. Anyone have any questions? Okay, I've got one then. When you went through your priorities, most of them are all modernization. So you're not asking for a school in Riverside at this time. I mean, obviously the Shro site, yes.
Shro site,
Yeah.
yes. One of the things we've also realized and have actually faced is one of the challenges developers have also had, and we've actually had a few emails and situations with families where they have bought within Riverside or Sharu, being told that a school is coming and that school site is there. So developers have not necessarily provided their proper information of the process of how to get the school to the school site. Right now with Riverside and the growth area of about 10,000 people that are coming to the community, we're going to need 1,900 additional spots for those students and a permanent seat, not in a modular for them to sit. So right now with having Shiro to be a K-9 school, that will fix the need with everything that's expanding on the west side. And then if we need to readjust Shiro at one point down the road, the same way that we did with Wild Rose and now Hillgrove to adjust what the class sizes per school, it would be acceptable.
Okay,
I
I'm
would,
gonna let Ken go, then I'm gonna come. Oh, you can't?
No, my.
Something's wrong with his Granicus.
Both Mike and my screens are
Go ahead, Ken.
misbehaving. Yeah, I'm just curious, going back to the Shiro with this change to a 900 student, 2-story kindergarten, grade 9. And some of the concerns about crossing. Is there enough kids in Sherrow that meet the 900 capacity? Because I wouldn't want to. I mean, kids could still cross Ray Gibbon, and if they're significantly younger, that would still concern us. So what is that they get bused more than what a high school kid would? Like, what's the rationale in relation to that thinking?
A lot of it being that our schools are full. And so this would be the next option of where to direct them to. If you look at the neighborhood websites, Sherrow up front and center is the big drawing card of the community amenities site and the school site. Same with Riverside. And so they are, certainly promoting that those are fairly imminent.
Yeah,
in the
no, I know
future.
that. I just don't think the growth's there yet in Sherrow, so you would have to probably fill from Riverside and potentially Giroux. So I mean, you would still have to cross Ray Gibbons. So I'm just wondering, I mean, you know your transportation better than I do. So is it that a kindergarten to grade 9 would bus more than they don't ride their bike? Because I mean, I would have significant concerns having a grade 1 ride their bike across Ray Gibbon because we're not.
100%.
There would be more
we're not-
busing. If they're coming from Riverside, there would be more busing and, respectful of our kids that do drive. Teens tend to not necessarily pay as much attention. And so if they have the option to not have to cross the Albert Trail, that is something that we can remove as a barrier to safety. Ray Gibbons doesn't seem to face the same amount of issues as the Albert Trail when it comes to people having to cross over.
Some of the other factors too that we face are around priorities that Alberta Education is making as well in terms of they're making parental choice for whether it be programs that schools house or just which school you want to go to. They're funding transportation accordingly to accommodate that choice.
So is it that you're advocating for both the Sherrow and the Riverside at the same time? Or is it that you're say Sherrow would be priority number 1, Riverside number 2, realizing, and again, please forgive me, Riverside is more built out than Sherrow. So you have a lot of kids, and I think you're correct when you're saying that some of the they're trying to sell their homes based on the fact that there's going to be a school there. And so they may not be as forthright in relation to the timing of that school. So wouldn't it be a priority to build that school first versus Sherrow?
It really boils down to the size of the site as well, right? If you've been by the actual school sites in Riverside, they're pretty tiny.
Yeah.
And to be able to accommodate a K-9 school with 900 students in it, it's not going to fit.
So
On those
if you
sites.
look at the map for the 2 Riverside maps that are there, it would be the one on the south side that actually would probably be the one that we would be given right now, as the one that's on the north side of McKinney is still privately owned. So when the city owns it, that's where we would actually have an easier access to building it. It's half the size of what we need, even though that there's an adjacent park. Unless you're willing to downsize the adjacent park, then that's where the situation lies. Where in Sherrow right now, there's 25.5 acres. So it's still enough room for the future city anemone site to come, while still creating adequately sized space school, as well as anything that might need to happen on the school property. When you look at Lois Hole, it's on about 3.63 acres right now, and Lois Hole is already too small. And so with the smaller size, I believe it's listed. Sorry, with Lois Hole, 3.58. The city size is only 2.59, and the ongoing feedback within the community is the school grounds are too small. So you can't have the big play field, and then obviously the issues with grass over the last few years.
Do you know how many, and I'm just curious, if you don't know, I wouldn't blame this number of children that would be in that age category that currently reside in Riverside? Do you know how many are being bused up to your other locations, or?
I don't have the number offhand. Senior administration might be able to find it and we can get back to you. So
I was just curious as to know, I mean, it seems to be populated with a lot of young
Yeah.
families. I mean, I think that's the demographic that everybody's aiming for in there and also the other side, a lot of seniors like Mike. I'm just more curious as also.
I think we're quite keen to see the results from this municipal census as well, to compare to where we are seeing our enrollments within our schools, to see how that aligns.
Councillor Jolly, go ahead.
Thank you. I just have a question about the pressures that you're seeing on high schools and, you know, them being full basically already. Is the province putting up roadblocks in terms of exploring non-traditional hours of schools or, you know, asynchronous classes or virtual classes? Is that one of the barriers to exploring those options?
Certainly what we've seen, if you look at the minister's mandate letter, it is strictly speaks to putting schools and building them in communities of greatest need. And so we are certainly right up there as being in the donut of what is our metro areas.
Yeah, no, I for sure understand that. I'm just wondering if like what the barriers are to say offering classes between, you know, 3 and 8, for example.
Part of that becomes a staffing issue. So within our actual budget, we have to allot staff hours, and ideally and traditionally the school hours are anywhere from, you know, say 8 to 2:30 or 8 to 3. So now if we're opening up, we have to double what teaching capacity potentially is, as well as asking the Alberta government to increase our budget. Right now, Alberta is well below the national average for what funding is, and we do have a very fiscally responsible, amazing team here, but we're working with about $112 million within our budget. And to be able to increase hours outside of regular school hours, we have to be able to increase teachers within our community. We already well employ 900 staff within our division, but then where is that budget going to come from to teach them?
No, that's great. So just to follow up on that, so if there was the budget, we'd be able to better utilize existing buildings instead of building new, you know, $50 million buildings or $20 million buildings. Is that correct?
I'm thinking back to a presentation we had from one of our high school principals earlier this year, who referred to his facility as a casino, practically because it is almost 24/7, in that between the utilization is there.
So we have many after-school activities that staff are still volunteering their time to be part of. And then we also have many students that are actually using the space to study or have tutors that are coming in to help them. So it's not once, you know, 3 o'clock hits, the building is vacant. There are still many other things that are happening within the schools with outside of just, you know, regular sporting activities, but also the extracurricular activities and, you know, study groups that take place.
Okay, so budget's not the problem. Sorry, I'm trying to figure that out.
It is a problem because a lot of the extracurricular activities is done out of staff just volunteering. So you can't expect a staff to come in and work a second 8-hour day to teach students when they're paid for that. But there are some staff that are obviously very passionate about the extracurricular activities their students are part of, and they take that as no differently than a parent volunteering to coach hockey.
Okay, thank you.
I find this, sorry, is there any more questions? Okay, good. This is cool information right on the screen because I've got the map too. So Demco is 4.57, but the site in Riverside is bigger than that. So it could hold. I mean, it's not perfect, but it could, right?
So Demco also shares with Sister Alphonse.
So
And
there's
so they
2
have
schools
their
on
site.
4.57.
There's 2 sites, and then the city of St. Albert, that's size
Okay.
for Demco is also shared between the 2 schools.
My biggest question to you is, so your number 1 priority is K-9
Yes.
and in Shro, and that's a 25 acre. And I'm going to ask staff if that includes the amenities site. Does it? Do you really
It's
know?
20, when I was looking up at the report from June earlier this year.
You don't have to answer right now, but I'm going to get there. because Chair Armstrong sent us a letter last week and they were asking for 20 acres in Erin Ridge North. So we have not seen Erin Ridge North area structure plan, but I asked, I want to see something. They couldn't provide us a map because things seem to be moving. But the biggest site they've got there is 11. So would a K-9 not make more sense on the smaller site and the high school on the bigger of the two sites?
With Belrose being so close to a second school site, it's still the travel of students having to cross, high school students having to cross St. Albert Trail. And then it also is very close to Greater St. Albert. So when you have such a vacancy in the northeast, that's where we're trying to fill that hole, because the northeast area of St. Albert is obviously going to continue to expand and grow out. Where right now, the only thing we really have on the south side is Paul Kane, and Paul Kane right now has stopped taking registration.
Right.
So even though Paul Kane.
I
would be
just think
considered
11
northeast,
acres is going to be too small for your high school. And
I'm
so,
gonna refer to.
yeah, although I'm looking here, Belrose is on what? 9. It's, but again, we all know it's tight and.
Yeah.
And of course, Paul
Belrose
Kane,
is also.
Paul Kane / Lauren Akins is a hard comparison because it's just this
Well,
combined
and Paul
beautiful
Kane, you think
space,
about
right?
it, it's 2 schools
Yeah.
plus an outreach and our division
Yeah, it's
office.
beautiful. It's what,
Yeah.
it's the ideal of what we would like to go back to.
I mean,
for-
we're happy to take 32.9 acres. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So I tell you that because when you're prioritizing, because if the government takes your number one priority and says, here's your K-9, here's the money, and you put it in Shiro, then when they come with money for a new high school, we don't have a site that's 20 acres for you. So just for you guys to wrestle with.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys even build 9 through 12. Like, sorry, 7 through 12, like combine the junior high and the senior high levels. If that would work at Shiro and meet your priorities. I'm just tossing stuff around. Because then you can put the elementary, just the K-6 in Riverside.
There's less needs
Yeah.
as well for the outdoor spaces when you are going through a K-9. So the part of the reason why high schools are so big, also because there's 1,600 students, but
Mhm.
the increase in parking and
Yeah.
the increase in extra facilities.
That's
that
what
are
I'm
being
thinking.
put
Use the 25-acre site for the high school, for the bigger. I mean, I'm just telling you, we haven't
But we
anything.
can't, the
right.
25.2 acres also includes the facilities of the Salbert anemones. So.
Okay,
it
that's,
would-
I'm gonna
Yeah.
clarify that, but if it does, then that.
Yeah.
Although you don't need, you can use the parking with the amenities. It's like co-locating parking. It's also co-locating some rec facilities for the high school students.
If they're
right?
built at the same time.
Yes, so right now, if the government was to call you with some money, the sites we have are Oakmont, Riverside, and Shiro. So we will get the area structure plan for the North, Erin Ridge North.
Mhm.
I'm looking at you. End of the summer?
Well, provided everything gets sorted out, the area structure plan is
Yeah.
forecast for Q3 of this year.
And just because an area structure plan is approved does not mean they're servicing. I think it was very public about the sanitary issues. And then that piece of land is going to be probably an expensive build because of the quality of the land that is being provided. So just food for thought.
And that's where we see there being a real benefit if we looked at some joint advocacy together.
For sure. I will advocate all day long for 15% MR and,
We know that you were the one who originally asked, so thank you for that.
okay, any more questions, guys? I see none. All right, thanks for coming. This is
Thank you
good
for your time.
information. Can we have a copy of your presentation?
Yes. we can send
Yeah,
it to
that
you.
one graph of the current sites and just the list of priorities just for my records.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, I also have Emily Baker registered to speak, but Emily, I assume you want to speak when we get to the agenda item, not right now. You could stick around for a few minutes? Okay, good. Okay. Does anyone have any business arising from the public school board's presentation? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to administration. So we've heard some comments about the capital plan requiring significant land for school sites, and our MR is not going to meet the need. What's the implication for the city? We're going to advocate for more MR? there's implications there to developers. Is it going to be incumbent upon the city then to purchase more land, or what's the general consensus going forward around this?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Perhaps I can offer initial comment, and I certainly stand to be backed up by Mr. Slatt, who's been dealing with school sites specifically from a planning perspective. There is tension. So 10% is 10%. We can't go above it. And so the city's flexibility lies in what the other elements of MR are used for. So that's trails and parks. So if you want to get rid of those, you can allocate those to school builds, right? But it comes at an expense. It's a zero-sum game. Alternately, yes, I guess you could purchase money, or sorry, use money. You could purchase land to bolster that, right? But that's not insignificant. And so right now we are constrained by that 10% cap and the relative usage between school sites and our community standards. Mr. Slatt, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think you've nailed it there, Phil. Yeah.
Yeah, just, when you hear 18 acres, 25 acres, there's very few sites that are that large. So a consolidation of all our MR would then virtually take away the options for parks in various corners in the community.
That's correct. Or I guess ostensibly you could have fewer school sites and combine them into larger sites, but then, essentially the formula that guides a school based on build out and population, right? We start breaking that to focus on specific builds. But
should be interesting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, anyone else have any questions? Adrian, you have your hand up for a reason. Do you have a question?
I just wanted to add, maybe just within our own area structure plan terms of reference, the city requires minimum site for school sizes and then minimum site for park sizes. So the minimum size of a school site is 1.8 hectares combined with a minimum community park of 2 hectares for a total minimum of 3.8 hectares. So just for context and perspective, and to be honest, I guess when we've looked at a lot of these school sites in the past, I think you're aware of the process. We subdivide out the footprint of the school kind of as late as we can, so that we ensure that we can keep the adequate amount of community park space. And that has been why we've been advocating for multi-story schools, because of this limitation of MR, which has been brought up in the past.
Adrian, does it help that we've gone to the 2-stage of structure plans, from area structure plan and neighbor structure plan, so we have bigger pieces of land that we're working with, and the bigger piece, 10% of something bigger is a bigger piece, right? So then.
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Mayor. So it does, in many ways, it enables more flexibility, which is kind of the best thing that we can see. And as you noted, when we start with a bigger area, there is opportunity to plan for potentially larger sites for park and school. That being said, when it all works out through the neighborhood planning process, we still want to make sure that the individual neighborhoods are getting adequate amounts of MR as well. So we've got to balance that out throughout the neighborhood. I think we've seen in the past some proposals where a substantial amount of MR is allocated to one site, and that means that the rest of the neighborhood then goes beyond that 400-meter kind of distance to a park site. And so those are kind of the balancing trade-offs that we have to make here, is trying to make sure that we're serving residents and school-age population as well.
Is there a process for compensation if one landowner or one developer has the majority of the MR in a big area structure plan between the other owners?
I guess in the past we have done some deferred reserve, where we've kind of traded some pieces around within a development. Generally with primarily residential neighborhoods, we try to avoid that. With more non-residential type of development, I think that becomes more plausible. And again, going back to the point about the larger ASPs, those larger ASPs have more of that. So there might be more of those discussions in the future.
Oh, Councillor Killick, go ahead.
Just to follow on Councillor Broadhead's question was, is the 10% MR on the way it's divvied up consistent across the whole province, or is this a number that's unique or specific to St. Albert's?
No, it's across the province, although I think, and I'm looking at Diane. If you're in a county, they don't require the school sites. They still get 10%, but sometimes they get cash in lieu, right? Or maybe Adrian can answer that. Yeah, sorry, I don't know why I'm looking at you because you're.
Yeah, so I can't speak to the county. I don't know how counties handle all of their MR situations, but as the mayor noted, it is uniform across the province. The obligation for some time back, probably in the 70s and 80s, was 15%, which is why you do see those larger green spaces in some of the mature neighborhoods. And now we're at 10%. There was an ability to, well, there was a mechanism written within the MGA that enabled, in theory, communities to obtain additional MR when the neighborhoods were above, I think it was 30 dwelling units per hectare, but the way that it was written, you actually couldn't implement it. So here we are with 10%.
Thank you. It just gives us a scope that it's a challenge that every municipality is facing, not just unique to St. Albert's.
Okay, any more questions? I'm seeing none. Okay, thank you all for showing up, and I like the way we do this publicly, presenting your priorities. I think it's a good use of time. Consent agenda. I think there's only 2 things left. 3 things. Who wants to do it? Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
That the written recommendations in the following agenda reports be approved. 6.1, regular council meeting minutes of May 7th, 2024. 7.3, Arts Development Advisory Committee recommendations, Public Art Policy CCS 25. And 7.4, Internal Audit Steering Committee recommendations 2024-2027 Audit Work Plan.
Thank you for that. Call for the vote. Vote is closed and that passes unanimously. Okay, so that was consent. Now the minutes from May 7th were just approved on that agenda. Okay, so standing committee of the whole, the recognition policy, I think this was pulled by Councillor Bermansky. Was it for voting purposes? And you have a question as well? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, through the mayor to administration. On the intent of this policy was to essentially eliminate the Founders Day proclamation. So we went from a small proclamation to a policy now that's directing staff to plan for different celebrations or different ideas for celebration each year. Why did we not just remove the Founders Proclamation and keep it simple? Because now we have a large open-end policy that's so open that it's not even clear what it will lead to.
Yeah, thank you. We've got Elizabeth Wilkie on. Before that, maybe I'll just confirm administration's understanding the intent was not the removal of a proclamation, but in fact, the ability to take a more encompassing view of our history and the founding of St. Albert from prior, I guess, to the Oblates coming in and officially founding.
Yeah, because it's still a proclamation.
So that was administration's understanding of the intent. Elizabeth, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question and for that introduction, Bill. Absolutely. The intention was to remove the fixed proclamation and to provide guidance on what would be in future proclamations, and also just identify if council so choose to direct administration to pursue any other events or activities that were around celebrating our heritage here in St. Albert, that there would be guidance for administration to pursue those things. Similarly, to just ensure that there were parameters around the things that we are already doing, like providing operating dollars to our partner organization at Arts and Heritage Foundation to steward our archives, collection, and museum and heritage sites. It also just defines those parameters as well.
Okay, and it was mentioned in, our committee of the whole that the staff would be working on different types of celebrations. So I don't really see where council has control of what proclamations would be in this situation.
Yeah, perhaps I could jump on that. So council has sole authority over proclamations. Administration cannot and will not issue proclamations. That's the purview of council. In terms of, the days or the events of historical significance, related to lighting up flags, all those things, those are still being worked on, but ultimately council will determine when a proclamation is issued or not.
Okay, but those things would have still continued without this policy development though, right?
By and large, yes, we're working on those already.
Okay, I'll still vote against it. I find it very, very generic, and it's, it's just giving administration work that is already being completed in many other avenues. And again,
Councillor, why don't you save that for debate?
okay,
That sounds like debate. And Councillor Mackay is actually ready to go with a motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The St. Albert Heritage Recognition Policy C-CC-24 attached to the agenda report dated May 14th, 2024, entitled St. Albert Heritage Recognition Policy C-CC-24 review be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Mackay. Accept that. Any comments?
Yeah, I got some opening comments.
Yeah, cool. Yep.
Yeah, and actually, I think the best opening comments actually
Never done this
the policy statement, and I'm going to read it verbatim. The city of St. Albert acknowledges and celebrates the rich and diverse heritage of our community. We recognize that our history is shaped by the collective contributions of various groups over time. The establishment of the Oblate mission was previously referred to as Founders Day, and while we acknowledge that our community's roots go even further back, including the presence of First Nations and Métis peoples before these events, and St. Albert continues to grow with the contribution of others. Rather than attributing sole founding status to particular entities, we commit to honoring the collective contribution of all and many who have shaped our community. The city of St. Albert will recognize the stories and contributions of all, promoting the rich heritage and diverse culture of the community. That policy statement really clearly outlines what we are trying to achieve in relation to some of the discussions that we had around the original Founders Day. Rather than being kind of separating, it's much more inclusive this way. And that's why I like the direction that we moved.
Sorry, the Councillor Bermanski, I probably cut you off when I shouldn't have, but try to keep the questions and debate separate. So did you want to enter in on debate?
Well, my only comment on this is I'm seeing the policy and I appreciate the intent in the policy of us, separate. We do celebrate all those things. We celebrate them at all different times of the year, and St. Albert does a great job of that, and the Heritage does a great job of that. And what we've done in the policy, we've taken a proclamation of a one-day proclamation and made it to a very large generic policy that's so large that it really doesn't represent anything. And then staff, sort of has to work on it each year and dedicate time to what we're going to celebrate, how we're going to celebrate on top of the celebrations that we already do. So I understand that, the reading the proclamation, it wasn't comfortable for some reading the proclamation, and maybe it needed an update, but the elimination of a small proclamation has grown to something that's much larger, much more time consuming, and really a replication of many, many things that we already do. So I think we could have just eliminated the proclamation and kept it simple. So again, I'm not supporting this. Thank you.
All right, anyone else on debate? Seeing none, anything to close, Councillor Mackay?
I think we should celebrate who we are and where we came from. And it's a method of commemorating and honoring the invaluable contributions of many individuals and communities that not only include our First Nations, Métis, and many of our newcomers that are now moving into our communities. I can't imagine where we would be without the African descendants community and now the new Ukrainian community. And so why would we just stop at a Founder's Day? This allows us to continue to recognize the incredible contributions that makes St. Albert such a vibrant city. And it's more than an annual proclamation. An annual proclamation just recognizes the actual event. And you're correct. I think we should be celebrating every day the incredible contributions that not only our builders and our contributors have brought into our community, but continue with the number of newcomers that come into the city. It's what makes this city the great city that it is.
All right, call for the vote. Voting's closed and that passes by majority with Councillor Romansky opposed. Next on our agenda is our Arts Development Advisory Committee 2023 year-end report. And we are lucky to have the chair, Emily, with us today. Thank you for joining us and waiting. Hopefully it wasn't too bad.
I need a stepping stool.
You need a stepping stool. We can see you.
Righty.
Hey, go ahead whenever you're ready. Can we make the screen a bit bigger? Thanks.
Is there a full screen button?
There we go.
Thanks. All right. So thank you, councillors and Mayor Herron, for having me today. My name is Emily Baker. I am the current chair of the Arts Development Advisory Committee, as well as served as the vice chair in 2023. And so I just wanted to go through quickly our annual report, which you should all have received a copy of, pulling out some of the highlights of things that were achieved in 2023 and some things to look forward to in 2024. I did want to start with just a quick overview of the Grey Nuns White Spruce Park, which reopened in 2022, but officially had its grand opening in June 21st, 2023. And this is a wonderful example of artists being involved in the development process for new builds, new planning and redevelopment of parks within the community. And so artists Jennifer Marmon and Daniel Bourne were involved right from the beginning, which resulted in the redevelopment of this park having 4 new artworks / community gathering spaces that were built into the structure of the park and incorporating lots of pyrography, which is wood burning, into the general design and layout of the space. One of the reasons I wanted to include this in the 2023, even though I know you saw it in 2022, annual report is that it received recognition nationally last year with the Grey Nuns White Spruce Park being recognized by the Canadian Association for Municipal Administrators for its Environmental Leadership and Sustainability Award within our population category, which I think is a great little feather in the cap for this wonderful public space. Another area of oversight that ADAC has is the annual Young Artist Legacy Award program, wherein we're delighted to support 4 young artists from our community with small grants to pursue sort of professional development and learning opportunities. And projects that were funded this year included going to attend the Citadel Foot Theatre Summer Camp, the Windsor Park Chamber of Music Workshop, and 2 students to attend the Pygmalion School for Fine Arts with a total funding of $1,761.50 going to young artists in our community. Scrolled too fast, sorry. And so another major step that the ADAC committee followed through with in 2023 was seeing a new temporary mural come to Fowler Athletic Park, which should be installed shortly within the next month or 2, and finally seeing it come to fruition. This is a project that started late in 2021, 2022, when Fowler Athletic Park underwent refurbishment, and the Parks and Recreation staff came to the Cultural Services Department notifying that there was a retaining wall along the south edge of the running track that would be a perfect spot for some public art. It's 4 feet tall by 137 feet wide and is a wonderful space that's highly visible to a lot of people within the community, and was especially appealing as a site for public art because it's not traditionally an arts space. And this is sort of reinforcing the idea that's really foundational to this community, that art belongs to everyone and everywhere.
And so a call for submissions went out to artists in closing on June 22nd, 2023. And 66 artists in total submitted. This was a really nice achievement because it was the first call for submissions that the city has put out for artwork since before the pandemic, and was the first call that was fully accessible online. And it resulted in a lot more artists being able to take part and propose their work. There was a big focus on the ADAC committee for selecting criteria for this mural, including wanting to have something with striking visual impact, expression, originality, lots of focus on connection to community and the location being a primary concern. ADAC recommended that the jury who were going to be selecting the artwork look for and focus on artists that had either lived or were currently living in St. Albert or had a strong connection to the community. And this is a preview of the work that was selected. And so technically this is 2024, but it's still fun information. And so Soaring by Kalina Hansen was selected as the mural for this location. She currently splits her time between St. Albert and Oakville, Ontario, and is a recent graduate of the Sheridan College in the illustration program. But she attended Sir Alexander Mackenzie Elementary School and Lauren Atkinson while she is here in town, and says that the figures in this mural represent everyone from the community. First and foremost, you see students and high school students racing track, but there are families there flying kites, elderly folks, people using the track on their day-to-day. And so it really is representative of the entire town, with a few little Easter eggs hidden in of clever St. Albert locations, so those who know and love this community can fully see themselves recognized in this space. This work is going to be installed shortly and will be on site for 5 years, at which point we can reassess if it's still in good condition to keep it, or possibly put out a new call for a new work of art to take place in this space. Children's Festival in 2023 saw wonderful, immersive, fully enveloping artwork, Daedalum, which was brought by the Architects of Air to be part of the Children's Festival. It was something that was really appealing as a follow-up to the public art that was brought in 2022 of Walk Walk Dance. It was a very different kind of arts experience for the community. No one on ADAC had ever seen or taken part in anything like this, where you could walk into a structure and be completely enveloped in color and light that shifted with the daylight outside. And so there was a recommendation that $30,000 be withdrawn from the Public Art Reserve Fund to pay for the artist fee to bring this into the city for Children's Festival. And from June 1st to June 4th, 4,929 people purchased tickets to attend and take part and spend time in Daedalum, including several folks that were able to attend after festival hours, which was a new addition for this year's Children's Festival. And so it was something that ADAC heard a lot of very positive feedback about, with a really unique one-time opportunity for people to take part in, and something that could be enjoyed by everyone from all aspects of the community. 2023 was a big year for collections management and maintenance within the public art collection of St. Albert. Sadly, that included a few pieces that had to be removed or were stolen. And so St. Albert the Great, unfortunately by Al Henderson, was stolen, we noticed, on March 14th. And he was cut from his pedestal, which was a beloved piece of art from many people in the community. And immediately upon this happening, city staff took a lot of steps to assess the remaining public art within the community, to take steps to protect or upgrade some of the ways that artwork were adhered to their pedestals, and doing a full security review on several of the remaining pieces that are out in the public space. We're also worked with ADAC to consult with Al Henderson, the artist, as well as a Continuous Learning Community Society, who were deeply involved in bringing that work of art to St. Albert in the first place. And so city staff, as guided by ADAC, are working with Al Henderson to have a new commission for this site, and hopefully we'll have some more updates on how that's going soon. I don't have them in front of me now, so
don't ask.
But hopefully that will be returning. We'll have a new sculpture by Al Henderson returning to that spot soon. Cultivate Life, which is on the Gaffney building, lightly facing St. Albert Place, received a reprinting and an overhaul last year. And so, as you all know, Alberta winters are a little bit harsh. And so over the years, this panel, which thankfully was a mural based off of 216 paintings that were photographed and printed onto a Dipon panel, had seen a lot of discoloration and fading over the years. The city has all of those original pieces within its public collection. And so in consultation with ADAC and the artist, it was recommended that all of the works, the existing works in the collection, be rephotographed and the work be reprinted and installed on the building, which was unveiled on August 3rd, 2023. And it is, it's like night and day. You can see all of the details, you can see the color. It was a wonderful use of sort of public art funds to be able to refresh and revive this work, but also brought a lot of people to the space who had no idea that it was there, no idea how detailed and beautiful much as it was. And so that was one of the wonderful things that happened within maintenance last year.
Sadly, I remember that one going up. The first time, 2012.
The little girl who's in the piece, who's the model for the piece, was there for the unveiling day,
Cool.
and she wore her overalls again as a grown adult. One other work that had to sadly come down in 2023 was Tributes to Sisters of Charity Grey Nuns. This piece has also been outside for over 22 years, and in that time, this work was painting on wood panel, and over those 22 years of harsh Alberta winters, it had suffered significant paint loss and degradation with swelling of the wood and deterioration. It was also under consultation with the business owners and with ADAC decided that the work should be removed. Unfortunately, because of the condition of the work and its size, there was no other conceivable location with an indoor space for this work to go, and it wouldn't be able to be installed without prohibitively costly restorations. And so in consultation with the artist who conveniently lives in town, it was decided that the work be deassessed from the St. Albert City Collection and returned to the artist, which was their wishes. And so some upcoming projects for 2024. The city staff and cultural services have been doing a really great job of taking a look and going through all of the documentation and paperwork for the works that are out in public spaces, including going over all of the leases for public art that are on private buildings. And there's been a lot of changeover from the in city staff and these building owners since the beginning of the pandemic. And so 2 more works were identified as not having current lease agreements with the private building owners. And the owners have requested that rather than renewing the agreements, that the work come down. And so that includes Healthy Communities by Bella Totino Bursby and Color Fields 2 by Angela Grudillard. And so those works will be coming down and assessed shortly. And they'll be, once we can discover what their condition is in, it can be discussed of whether they can find a new location within a publicly owned building once their condition is known. And so that's something that will be happening shortly. But with all of these works coming down comes new opportunities. And so there is a new project in the works that will be hopefully unveiled in February 2025, and that's going to be the Banner Project. This will see the 80 streetlights on St. Albert, or just off St. Albert Trail on St. Anne Street, Perrin Street, and St. Thomas, adorned with art banners from February to November every year, coming down when the holiday Christmas lights go up and then going back up again when they come down. And so this project was funded through a motion that went through in 2018 that wanted to fund a diversity and inclusion project with artwork in the city. And so this would utilize $37,000 of that set aside funding, which was $90,000, and put out a call for artists to submit who have been historically under-recognized within collections and public art. And so this would allow the city of St. Albert to enhance its downtown diversity and vibrancy, as well as highlight artists that speak to and of our community and our commitment to diversity and inclusion within that space. And so in total, there will be 3 artists hired who will design 4 banners, each totaling 12 different banner designs, which will each be printed 6 times, give or take a couple to fill the 80 light posts. And they'll be up for that period that runs when the holiday Christmas lights are down. So pilot projects that's designed to run for 3 years, and depending on how it goes and how it's received, could be expanded to other places within the community and looking for more artists. It's a really great banner. Projects are really popular in a lot of municipalities because not only are they accessible to artists working in a lot of different materials and media, because you can photograph the art and then print it on the banner, it's also a wonderful opportunity for young artists who are looking to get into public art and being able to take on projects that they have the skill and capability to achieve, sort of building up their public art repertoire. And so we'll be able to put out a call for submission or call for request for qualifications by mid-2024, where an artist will send in a portfolio representative of their style and subject and artistic practice. And the artist will be selected by a selection committee and then hired to create 4 banner designs specifically for this project, which give them an opportunity to get to know the space, possibly get to know the other artists, and create some really interesting and exciting work that's just for us. And you have also noticed that there is a new public art policy, which you just passed on consent. So thank you very much. That will go into place. That brings the work of the Arts Development Advisory Committee in line with the public art policy, and hopefully will serve our community for many years to come. I also put in a little thank you to the staff at Cultural Services, because we could not do our amazing work as an ADAC committee without their incredible dedication and hard work. And that includes Tamsin, who's been our staff liaison since the beginning, as well as Jacqueline Blackwood and Andrea Bose, who have provided a wealth of knowledge, expertise, and diligence in caring for our collections and community. And so on behalf of ADAC, we're looking forward to work of 2024 and bringing more vibrancy and connection to the city of St. Albert through art. I don't think I made time. I'm sorry.
When you're presenting, there's no time limit. There's no time limit in this section. Thank you for recognizing the staff. Tamsin's great, and the whole crew down in culture is amazing. Yeah. And I think we need to thank you and the volunteers who sit on the committee for doing the work, because obviously it was busier. Yeah. And pre this committee, I don't know where that work would have followed and how we would have had public input into some of this. So this is great. So I'm going to open it up to questions of members of my council. Mike, go ahead. And then you got some too, Shelley? Yeah, why don't I go to you to make the motion, Shelley? Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm kind of saddened to see the public art that's been on buildings coming down. Yeah, I understand the explanation that you've given, that building owners don't support that, which is unfortunate. But my question is, how do other communities, and there are many of them across Canada, how do other communities, building owners support art on their buildings? What kind of made St. Albert different that's happened in the last year?
I'm not sure how other communities manage their lease agreements with public buildings, whether it's a blend. I've heard of no specific cases. I've heard of different avenues that have been explored. So whether it's the private building owner supporting and hiring and managing like bringing murals onto the sides of their buildings, for example, or a lot of municipalities like Edmonton have public art dedicated to all of their publicly owned buildings, which is something that the new public art policy is moving towards, is kind of moving away from this lease agreement, which puts us into weird places when lease agreements change ownership on the building owner's side. But otherwise, for specific details on how other municipalities manage that, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay, just it's again, it's unfortunate that it's happening in St. Albert, but is successful in other places.
I think it might be one of those situations of when it rains, it pours. There's a few pieces that have reached their lifespan because works outside have a lifespan, and that's sad that a few are happening all at the same time. And I think a lot of the work goes to the city staff for doing that overhaul, to making sure we have lease agreements with building owners in place. And some of that chaos of the pandemic years has sort of been reassessed. So these things might have happened more slowly, of one or two at a time rather than all at once, if we hadn't had years of weird uncertainty and pandemic times and changeover.
Fair enough. I'm also excited to see the banner project downtown on behalf of the Downtown Business Association. So we're all looking forward to that. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Councillor Broadhead has a question as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your presentation today. Just a question next on our agenda is the whole policy around arts, and it was socialized with the advisory committee. I'd like to ask you what the debate was like around the removal of private donations and gifting. It's been recommended take it out. What was the debate like at your committee? Was it
It wasn't really a lot of debate. It can, when sort of things come into the collection and non-standard avenues, it can create lots of murky water on like who and how and what things came into the collection. And I know a lot of the impetus behind the policy of wanting to have more clear procedures of when and how artwork is brought into the collection, whether it's major public projects or smaller works for inside buildings, is being able to have sort of clear avenues of what gaps within our collection do we want to fill? What is the specific need of this building and of this place and of this community space? Whereas donations to collections from private members, from other municipalities, or from whoever might not be addressing those needs that might be of highest priority to the collection and to the community itself. And so I know that was something that ADEC talked quite a bit about, and we're quite in support of sort of removing this donations clause within the public art policy to make things a little bit clearer and to keep sort of those paper trails of how artworks come in and why really clear and transparent for the community.
Yeah. Fair enough. I'm just wondering, Madam Mayor, how we would react if somebody wanted to donate a Monet to the city of St. Albert. I think it might be a different question. Anyway, thank you very much.
Are you giving up your private collection?
Yeah.
I only have a print, thank you.
All right, I see no more questions. I'll go to you, Councilor Bermansky.
Do you want the motion first then?
Read it in, yep.
Okay. That the Arts Development Advisory Committee Annual Report for 2023 provided as an attachment to the May 21st, 2024 agenda report entitled Art Development Advisory Committee 2023 Year-End Report be received as information.
All right, I'll accept that. Any opening comments?
Yes, comments. So thank you, Emily. We're so fortunate to have you on the Arts Development Advisory Committee. You know, you're so concise with everything in Tamsin, and the committee, you know, I've been sitting on it for a few years, and it's impressive all the stuff that's been done in that period of time and how organized all the artwork is now, and everything categorized, and all the great events that have come forward, and a policy that's a good guideline for going forward. So I just have to commend the whole committee and the leaders of the committee that spectacular work, and excited about what's coming next. So thank you.
Anyone else on debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Awesome, thank you. That passes unanimously. Thank you for coming and taking the time out of your day, putting the report together and everything else that you do. This is good, good public information. Next on our agenda was the public art policy. So the motion that was approved on consent was that the public art policy CS 25 attached agenda report entitled Arts Development Advisory Committee Recommendations, Public Art Policy CCS 25 dated May 21st, 24 be approved. And I believe the next one was on consent too. So that was Internal Audit Committee. I'll just get the motion. The motion was that the work plan, the Internal Audit Steering Committee 2024-27, our audit work plan be approved. So those are done. Now, speaking of stolen art, we also have the RCMP in the house. We have our quarterly policing update from Inspector Ryan Komoniak. Come on down to the mic. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually had the opportunity to walk through the Painters Guild display a couple of weeks ago. It was very impressive.
Yeah.
Local talent. So good afternoon, Mayor Herron, councillors. Nice to see you all today in person. Fresh off a Game 7 win by the Oilers. I don't know about you, but I feel a bit tired today. I'll just introduce Acting Staff Sergeant Mike Bodad. He's a key member of my management team, and he's just here today as an observer. So I'll start with an operational update. So happy to report we met the vast majority of the initiatives and objectives in relation to the 3 priorities laid out in our 2023-24 annual performance plan. And in conjunction with the St. Albert Policing Committee, we will be carrying forward those same 3 priorities into the current fiscal year, which we're in now, with some minor amendments to a few of the initiatives and objectives. For everyone's benefit, those priorities specifically are crime reduction, mental health in vulnerable communities, and domestic violence. So included in your agenda package is a fourth quarter policing report with a short narrative and overview of results achieved under that particular priority. Being mindful of your time today in a busy agenda, I won't go through or review those particular updates. However, I will provide you with a sneak peek into our current annual performance plan. And I have a few operational updates that I can share with everyone here today. So within the priority of crime reduction, and in an effort to thwart theft of catalytic converters, we will be onboarding a program locally called Tag Your Cat. This program will allow vehicle owners the ability to partner with a local auto repair or tire shop to etch a permanent serial number onto their catalytic converter. Furthermore, they can register that serial number and receive a small sticker to attach to their vehicle window in hopes to deter would-be theft that the part is serial numbered. Also within the crime reduction priority, we'll be undertaking quarterly enforcement projects directed at retail theft. So most of you may have seen some coverage in the local newspaper just in regards to a project that we had undertaken earlier this year with some fairly alarming results. And typically many of these offenses are at the hands of prolific offenders. Many of these thefts target items that are used as a black market commodity by organized crime. These items include tobacco, liquor, perfumes, high-priced electronics, and even Pokemon cards, just to name a few. We want to deter these types of activities from taking root here in the city of St. Albert. Additionally, we will be adding something new under the priority of mental health in vulnerable communities, specifically at-risk youth. So we are partnering with Sports Central to offer community youth that may be underprivileged with the ability to receive a wide range of sports equipment. We are partnering with Sports Central to offer community youth that may be underprivileged with the ability to receive a wide range of sports equipment packages at no cost. Everything from balls to bats and everything in between. Our community policing and engagement unit will be connecting with community youth and canvassing the schools for interest in promoting this program. Keeping youth active and giving them access to organized sports is important. The RCMP want to be a part of that. Lastly, I continue to work closely with the policing committee to explore additional initiatives that we can incorporate into our current annual performance plan. In the way of an administrative update, first off, I'd be remiss to not extend my appreciation in person to City Council in their support to increase the authorized full-time employee rate equivalent from 70 to 75 officers. This support has allowed me to work with the RCMP Human Resources Department in creating a staffing plan to deal with the lingering vacancy rate we've seen here over the past 3 years. I'm pleased to report that we've bounced off the bottom and are now seeing that improvement curve starting to take shape. There are currently 12 lateral transfers in progress, and we're starting to see officers landing in St. Albert and filling many of those hard vacancies. This will take time, but I can see the improvements are starting to make a difference. This means more officers and more boots on the ground, which will lead to more visibility and proactive services to this community. Moving over to the detachment renovations, I'm continuing to work closely with the policing services manager, Aaron Giesbrecht, and emergency services director, Everett Cook. We are pushing forward with renovations at both Maloney and Beaudry Place to deal with the pressures of a growing department. I thank City Council's unwavering support to ensure the RCMP is well equipped, not only today, but into the future in serving this community. And barring any questions, that's all I have for today.
I can't let you get away that fast because there are some questions. Councillor Broadhead, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Inspector Kamenuk, for being here today. And I certainly want to thank you and your team for the work you do in our community, often unsung, but we certainly rely on the services you provide. Nothing, I think, brings more comfort than when you're in trouble and you call and you guys show up. So appreciate that. My question to you is really around crime in our community. In the news today, a lot is being made of organized crime stealing vehicles and shipping them overseas to make great money. Do we see that sort of activity in St. Albert at all?
Well, great question, Councillor Broadhead. I would say we're certainly not immune to it. I mean, St. Albert is a pretty a pretty wealthy community. And with that, the target of those crimes is higher end vehicles. I did have the opportunity to attend the Alberta Association Chiefs of Police Conference a couple of weeks ago. And I can tell you that the province is certainly starting to take a closer look at this and seeing what part they can play in addressing those most recent trends. I can tell you that the Alberta Law Enforcement Response Team is standing up a unit to address that. Right now, I believe it's only three officers and a civilian. But they are working closely with the CBSA, with our federal counterparts. But really, unfortunately, we're just scratching the surface. But I think as these thefts continue to become a problem, I could see more attention and more funding being directed into that area specifically. And we'll obviously be a stakeholder in that process here at the City of St. Albert.
Fair enough. Thank you. That's encouraging to hear. So a number of years ago, there was a problem in an area in the city where I worked in, and the regional commander worked with the community, and they instituted a program where they gave out a sort of a steering wheel immobilizer called the Club. Are those things still available, and are they effective, or was that for the time and place?
I think they're still available, and I think they are called the Club. I think from a proactive prevention standpoint, I think they would be a great tool, especially for people that drive some of these exotic vehicles.
Right.
It would certainly be something that I think would be supported by myself if people wanted to adopt that practice. I don't know. In terms of the effectiveness of the Club, I don't really have any working knowledge on that. So can't really comment further than that.
$35 on Amazon there. That's cheap. Councillor McKay, you probably know about the program. You were probably there instituting it at the day.
Yeah, I was there. I didn't have anything directly involved with it.
Oh, okay. Anyway, thank you, Inspector. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, you're up next.
Thank you. So I had a couple of questions. You mentioned about the staffing, about how with the numbers it's getting better. So I'm wondering, when I look at the overtime versus the total costs, it looks like we're about 8% over budget to pay for overtime. So I'm wondering, do you think with these additional staffing that we're anticipating getting or have gotten, that we should see a decrease in that overtime? I'm just wondering if that's the attribution to the majority of it, or how do we find out?
Yeah, most certainly. So any of the overtime that we're incurring is usually to augment our front lines, our uniformed officers. So we're bringing in officers from within the detachment, also from other detachments, to fill those spots. So yes, as our vacancy rate decreases, we will see that that'll have a direct response on the overtime costs.
So basically, I guess I want to confirm is just majority of the overtime is actually from our staffing levels that we're just.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, almost exclusively.
Okay, so actually proving that may help us more than we realized. The other question I had, so your training budget, you have on page 84 of our agenda package, which doesn't help you at all. But the training budget you have at 268, but you're only planning to spend 95,000 this year, if I'm reading it correctly. It says Q4 revised is 95,000. So I'm just trying to, why are you thinking so low this year? Or am I reading these charts wrong? It says to date it's 23 and revised plan at Q4 is 95, but the plan budget is 268,000.
I'm looking at that now. I think I'll probably have to get back to you on that particular question, just so I can make sure we're talking apples to apples. But there has been a number of amendments made to the training calendar, just because we're onboarding some new equipment, body worn cameras, as well as some software and IT equipment. So I just want to make sure that I'm giving you the correct information on that. So I will provide you with a response to that.
That's awesome. It might be time delays or something from when you originally budgeted or something, who knows, right?
Yeah.
The other question I had is on page 89, and that I'm just trying to wrap my head around let me go back to, I'm on 87. I'm so close to the right number now. Kidnapping, hostage abduction. I wasn't aware that we were having 6 a year in kidnapping. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around that, because I would, in my naivety, I would just think that if there was a kidnapping, it would go to like an Amber Alert or we get a message saying that. So how is it that we're reporting attempted or completed 6?
What page are you on?
On page 89 of the agenda report.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thanks.
from 2019 to 2023.
Well, I could probably suggest that some of those kidnapping statistics are a result of a child custody type of scenario. I don't have the specific details in front of me because I would need to review those files, but and potentially that the scoring on that file was not amended or revised to accurately reflect what actually took place. So we do have a lot of, sure, as you can all imagine, there's a lot of custody issues with parents, with children from divorce or separation. So it'll often come to us as a kidnapping. We do the investigation, we work with the complainant, the victim, and it turns out that it's just a non-compliance with a child custody order. So don't be too alarmed with that statistic.
Okay, I think that'll just help the public to feel reassured about the safety of their children in general. The last one I had was about on page 90, so one page up, and you talk about the theft over 5,000 and also just the motor vehicle. I'm trying to find it here. There's, well, I think before this theft over 5,000, which has increased from 31 in 2019 to 51, and it seems to be increasing. And then also motor vehicle, I think stealing is from 116 to 213. So I know you kind of mentioned that. I'm just like, is there even anything we can do other than just, sometimes if you leave the keys in the car running, it's difficult for the, to stop that from happening. But it seems to be a bit of an alarming trend in that in the past 4 years, in some cases it's doubled or almost doubled.
Yeah, certainly. Great question. Great point. Yeah, we have seen a significant increase in motor vehicle thefts. But I think we're seeing it everywhere. If that makes any sense, like there's really no rhyme or reason to it other than, they are thefts of opportunity. There are certain things that as vehicle owners, the general public can do in addressing, prevention of that and taking proactive measures. Like you said, leaving your vehicle running is one thing, leaving your vehicle running with the keys in it's another. So certain initiatives, projects and campaigns that we can do, such as Lock It or Lose It, certainly help address that on a local level. But to your question, we're seeing that across the board, and certainly this more recent trend that we're seeing with the theft and exporting of luxury vehicles out of Canada overseas into South America, Africa. I don't think those numbers are going to be going down anytime soon. It's we're like I said earlier, we're just scratching the surface. Property crime, and just to touch on the last piece there, property crime, it ebbs and flows, like we see. You get an active prolific offender in the community for a period of a couple of weeks or a month. And you know, as long as they're committing crimes, those statistics we'll see a stark increase in that, so. Yeah, we're staying on top of it. Our crime reduction unit is staying on top of these prolific offenders. We're checking on them often, making sure that they're not out disobeying their court orders and committing crimes.
Just a quick follow. So with the cars, is it mostly the luxury vehicles? Are we seeing that's the rise and increases? They're not all busy stealing Chevettes or something, or?
I don't know the specifics on the vehicle thefts here in the city of St. Albert. I can tell you specific to the question earlier from Councillor Broadhead is they are luxury vehicles. They're not sending anything in containers overseas that's not a high-end luxury vehicles. That's where the money is.
So if it's not worth the cargo space, they're not getting it. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Another advantage of an electric car. They don't have the infrastructure in Africa.
Probably worth zero.
Exactly. Councillor Romansky.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Komiak, for presenting today. The couple questions I had are the municipal bylaws increased 20%, 16%, and then another 9%. Is that because you're monitoring the municipal bylaws more or addressing those, or what are those bylaws that you're seeing in?
Yeah, great question. So the Municipal Enforcement Services Department, it's not a 24/7 program. So quite often we will field calls from the public that are, you know, more appropriately dealt with by bylaw. So, you know, depending on the time of the year or the types of problems that people are having, we will get complaints from residents. They don't result in a criminal investigation. Obviously, they don't meet that threshold, but we still get calls for barking dogs and, you know, general concerns around certain derelict properties and so forth. So I think Municipal Enforcement Services might be better suited to answer that specific question. But yeah, again, those statistics, they do ebb and flow depending on various criteria, I guess.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the person's crime, it's jumped 16 and then another 9% in that one as well. And yet domestic abuse is classified as a little bit down. Where are these assaults happening? You know, it's mentioning an increase in assaults or anger. Is it like related to, you know, clubs, or where is this going on most of the time?
All of the above. So
all the above.
Whether it be assaults outside the schoolyard, assaults outside of licensed premises, assaults you know, at a transit stop. Like we see it all over the place. Like there's no real consistency there with regards to the types of complaints we get where people are being assaulted or threatened. So that probably doesn't answer your question, but yeah, it happens in many different scenarios and instances where there are assaults reported.
So there's anger out there in many different ways, I guess, that hopefully it depletes sometime.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a couple years ago, our persons crimes were actually down, and there's just really no rhyme or reason. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. Property crime, same thing, right? It's, you know, so many variables, so I can't offer you much in the way of an explanation behind that.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Romansky, if you want that question about the bylaw fences, you could put in an IR. But yeah. I see Councillor Jolly, you're good. Okay, go to Councillor Mackay then for the motion.
Sure. Thank you very much, Inspector Kamiak and Staff Sergeant. I'll just read the motion that the St. Albert RCMP Municipal Policing Report and the St. Albert Municipal Detachment Crime Statistics provided as attachments to the May 21, 2024 agenda be entitled Quarterly Policing Update RCMP Quarter 4, 2023-2024 be received as information. Thank you.
All right, I accept that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you again. I'm really looking forward to getting the boots actually on the street and in the detachment, because as we heard at the last policing committee attended by the acting staff sergeant, he made all sorts of promises that you're gonna have to really, you're gonna have to come through on. In addition, I mean, I think what we've seen is I mean, when you are struggling to maintain your authorized and your actual numbers, you are focused to kind of fall back to core policing services, which is reactive, and it's going to be fantastic to be able to actually get the boots so that we can actually get members into some of these positions that aren't considered soft, but are not, that are more community based. And I'll put traffic in there. Traffic is a very big one. And matter of fact, one of the consistent messages we heard at the lifestyle expos when we were manning the policing committee booths was traffic, noisy vehicles. And you didn't speak about noisy vehicles in your presentation, because there will be a concerted effort to deal with some of the noisy vehicles, which is a significant concern to some of the residents or some of the people who contact me. So I look forward to getting some feedback at the next policing committee meeting, and then I'll bring it back here. But so, I mean, I'm looking forward to getting our authorized strength up. It will lead to some unintended consequences in the sense that our building is too small. And we need to really start to look at how we are moving in relation to looking at kind of our building requirements and all that stuff. But so I think it would be a nice problem to have. Anyways, that's my comments.
Anyone else want to enter on debate? I didn't have a question, so I didn't ask it, but you brought up the noisy vehicles. It is one of the biggest complaints I'll get, especially going into the summer season when people are outside. So I think that's fantastic. I also, I mean, it's kind of unrelated, but you know, increased bylaw responses might come when we are full complement after we added 2 in the budget. So that's great. And I just appreciate you. If I need you, I can call you, and you're always ready for a coffee or a beer and or
The
just a
carts-
coffee.
The carts will be on the trails and in the parks, so I'm happy to say that. You know, we are going to have a bit of a service disruption with the carts, the trails, the proactive patrols, but I'm confident that we'll see that normalized by the end of the summer. But for your constituents, we can certainly promise you you'll still see our officers out and about. It just might not be to the extent they've experienced and enjoyed that over the previous years, but we're still going to be out there and about, and we're always going to come when you call. So.
All right, that's awesome. I was doing McHappy Day, and Councilor, I don't know, Jeff McKay came through the drive-through and handed him his burger. So he's still out there doing his work. So that's good to see. Anything to close, Councilor McKay?
No, nothing to close. Thank you very much.
All right, just appreciate the connection between council and RCMP. I will call for the vote. Voting's closed. And that's unanimous. Thank you. How are you guys doing? Anyone need a break? Okay, why don't we take 10 minutes? Is Counselor Jolly back with us?
Yep.
Yep, awesome. All right, we are on to where's Sheena? Cause she pulled this. Counselor Hughes? Otherwise, I'm just gonna take a motion and we'll. We're on to the quarterly update and you're the one that pulled it, so.
Okay, thank you. So I had a couple quick questions about the quarterly update. So it talked about the Fortis lights costing more than expected, and I'm trying to figure out why, because we're typically on an electric contract. And so if we're on a contract, why would the lights cost more for one of the expenditures than normal? Because the sun's been very consistent with the amount of time of it we exposed itself to us.
Through the chair to Councillor Hughes, that's a good question. So I think as we've been formulating the contract, we were finalizing it in Q4. So I think that the final contract that we've entered into is slightly different than we initially forecasted it. But what I can do is, if you'd like, I can get you to do up an IR and we can provide a detailed explanation for that.
Okay. So you're saying that the contract, we were still working on it and then and the prices have gone up, basically? Is that what I don't know what I'm looking at. You're way down there. Hello.
Hello, sorry. Yeah,
It's
I'm here.
okay. It's a
Yeah,
big screen.
I'm not 100% sure on it. That's what my recollection is, but I would prefer actually, if you do
Okay.
submit an IR, then we can make sure we have the right answer for you.
Okay, I will. And then the other thing was, it talked about the water connection fees and about how they've increased because of the number, the developments, but we have planning engineering that have gone down in revenue, and then we've had the water connection fees go up. So is it because it's like a lot of apartments or something, or do they have one water connection fee for an apartment, or how does that work? I'm just trying to figure out how those two go together.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Hughes. I think it's just due to the growth that's been higher than what we anticipated when we developed the budget. So that because we're trending with larger growth again in the areas that have come on board, as you notice, our assessment growth was higher, then we're naturally, I think the forecast is showing that we're going to be slightly higher in some of those fees also.
So I guess that's the other thing, though. We did adjust the assessment revenue the last month, right? And so it's even higher than what we reassessed it to be, or?
Through the chair to councillors, not the assessment revenue, but you know how our assessment base is growing higher than what we initially thought.
Mhm.
So because of that, you have, I think, a ripple effect. You've got more houses that are coming on board, so more assessment growth through water connection fees, and so it's that ripple effect. So we did adjust the revenue for assessment growth, and these are just some of the additional higher revenues that we're seeing through water connection fees.
Okay, so Pat, we're cool with the water connection fees. I'm just going to move on to the assessment growth. So we had the assessment growth increase and we adjusted the budget for increased assessment growth, just period. But then this would be indicate like the surplus or the expected is contributing because of the increased assessment growth. So it's even higher than what we've anticipated in April.
No, sorry. Through the chair to councillors, when this was done, this is the quarterly report at the end of March. So we hadn't done a budget adjustment for assessment growth at this time. So that's why you see some of the forecasts that are coming on for like our transfer and things like that. Are you still specifically referring to the connection fees? They're
No.
kind of, okay, yeah. So you won't see, so in Q2, the budget will be reflective of the budget adjustment that was approved last month, but these were all forecasted at Q1.
Okay, so I think we have an increase of 300,000 or right now an expected surplus of 300,000 and change. But if we were to reevaluate the assessment growth, I'm assuming that number would be substantially closer to zero.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, that's good to know. So just what I'm really glad to hear is that we saw that this was going to happen, and before we put the taxes in, we figured out a way to reduce the taxes. So thank you for that. That was just really proactive of you. So that way we can tell our taxpayers we did everything we could to try to reduce those taxes from this end. I think those are all the questions I had for now. So thank you for that.
All right, since it was you that pulled it, can I get you to make the motion?
That the attachment to the May 14th, 2024 agenda report entitled Corporate Quarterly Report, Q1, 2024 be received as information.
All right, accept that.
And really quickly, these quarterly reports, while they seem like a lot of work, they really do help us get a pulse of where we are in the city. And so it is just appreciated so that we aren't just having a surprise at one point of the year of we're really far behind or we're really far ahead and where we are with our surpluses, et cetera. And to anybody watching, if they hear that the surplus is currently at 0, it's always the lowest in Q1, and it's never not increased between now and the end of the year. And I think in some years, you've even had negative 300,000 in the first quarter and still end up with over $1 million, $2 million surplus in the end. So it may seem like we're just barely scraping by right now on this, but I'm still expecting to see a surplus at the end of this year. That's it. Thank you.
All right, see no one else, call for the vote. Voting's closed. Passes unanimously. Counselor Bermansky, you pulled 8.3 off. Did you have questions or was it just for voting?
I have questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you through the mayor to administration. Thank you again for the consultant report. It's helpful to know, what we're doing outside of the city on that report. And it is a little bit up from last year, but there's a couple questions I had with the retainer, the 50,000 retainer for CSG. Will that be on next year's or is that going to be removed?
Will not be on next year's.
Okay, so that's 50,000 there. And then it has first year council, and there was travel and accommodations for a consultant of $3,000. What's first year council mean? Could you describe that one, please? There's 3,000 and then 2,400, 5,400 total.
So I'm just trying to find it on the list of very tiny letters here. Sorry.
Yeah, they are tiny.
What page is this on, Councilor Bermansky?
It
Thanks.
is 130.
Which line item is it again, Councilor Bermansky?
On page 130 and the 3,000.
Maybe I can assist with this. Hi, it's Brenda here. It says a facilitator for council's first year session, council collaboration, that was for 2,400 from ICA Associates, Inc.
I'm just confused what first year session actually means.
Yeah. We'll have to get back to you and confirm that. That would have been
Yes,
one of the
agreed.
external contracts issued for a council session. I apologize off the top of my head. I don't know which one, but I'll get that information to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my next item was 3750 for digital marketing for local businesses. How did the city provide that for local businesses, or what exactly was that?
That's the economic development there.
That's correct. So I don't believe there he is, Mr. Erickson. I'll ask him to answer that. Thank you.
Might actually need to call on Ms. Wilkie. I believe this was part of the digital economy program, which is a free service to businesses. Nonprofits are not included in the program, but I believe this was for several local nonprofit organizations to be able to take part in the services to improve nonprofits' digital presence online.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, Mike covered it. Absolutely. That was just part of the costs associated with expanding participation in the digital economy program to just further provide those tools and understanding to our participating nonprofits.
Okay, thanks. It was confusing when it said local businesses, so nonprofits would probably be better listed. The next one is the 131,695 for design in the regional collaboration group, I guess it was. Was that a part that the city paid, or I know that a grant was provided to the different municipalities for that. Was that our portion that we paid, or did we pay the total amount for the consultant?
I think we received the grant into our bank and then we paid the consultant through that.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
So Trevor, Mr. Dooley can answer the specifics, but bottom line is we were the agent for the expenditure of those funds that we received through a grant. Trevor?
Yeah, so we are the holder. The Alberta Community Partnership Program requires that a single municipality hold the grant. So for the Collaborative Economic Development Initiative, the city holds the $450,000 grant from the province. So it's 100% grant funded.
Okay, and does a portion of that pay back the consultant fee to the city? I mean, the 131 that we put out, or?
That 131 was the city essentially acting as a banker for those funds. So those funds were not City of St. Albert dollars. Those were grant funds from the province.
Okay, so why are they in our total consultant?
Because in fact, the city holding those funds was responsible for engaging, doing the process and engaging the consultant on behalf of the Collaborative Economic Development Framework. So in fact, the money was given to us and we used the money. That's why it's reflected.
Okay, thank you. And then the only other question, and I'm assuming the 43,756 for the renaming, that's complete and everything's been paid out there now then.
To the best of my knowledge, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, through the chair. I believe so, but what we can do is go back and check, because if it wasn't, it would have been carry forward project that we would have asked council to bring forward for 2024.
Okay.
So if you would like to submit a information request, we can just confirm that either the project has been carried forward or that it was closed at the end of 2023.
But I would say if it's been carried forward, the project is done. So for all intents and purposes, as you're well aware, the policy's been produced, the administrative directive is produced.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now that we're here, I might as well ask my question that I had when I walked through. 7M Construction Limited, Gilmore Crescent, remedial work performed in municipal reserve area following private use implications of the public area.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I'm just thinking she's coming up here. That would be Donnie George.
Through the chair to Councillor Broadhead, that's actually an encroachment to MR land that we had to remedy based on a complaint received through our MES services.
That's what I figured. So my question is that do we recover any costs from the property owner that encroached upon our land? I mean, it cost us $19,000 to remediate that. There's damages here. Do we chase them down or do we just write it off?
In this particular case, it was forwarded to our insurance. So we can dig up the answer and provide as an information request update if you like.
If you're working on it, then that's fine by me. Okay.
All right. Councillor Maskey, you want to make the motion? Go ahead.
That the May 21, 2024 agenda report entitled 2023 Annual Contract Consultant Report be received as information.
Any comments?
Just that it's, this was put through as a motion and it's very much appreciated from myself, and I hope council appreciates it as well, just to kind of keep an eye on this. And a lot of consulting out there nowadays and a lot of need, and so it's good to see the report. Thank you.
All right, I'll call for the vote. Voting is closed and that passes unanimously. 8.4 was pulled by Councillor Killick. Do you have questions? You said questions and voting, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, questions and voting, Madam Mayor. So just a question to administration. There was kind of a two-part backgrounder in the second half of the backgrounder. It mentioned that there were no other locations where anti-slip surface was applied, and I think just to confirm that places like Grandin Pond viewing platform is a wooden platform. It doesn't have it. I just want to confirm if there's any other, list of places where we might have deployed anti-slip, or we've got lots of wooden structures where we don't have it.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I'll ask Ms. Pudlubny, given that some of the references you made were Rec and Parks specifically, though it may be broader than that.
Thanks. Through the chair to Councillor Kellick, you are correct. We do not have anti-slip strips at any other wooden platforms within our parks inventory at this time. So that would include the Blessed Lookout, Grandin Eco Park, and the boardwalk there. We don't have any slip strips on those surfaces at all.
And we don't have, like, there's wooden trail areas in Heritage Lakes. There's stairs into the ravines in Brayside. We even in our school parks that we maintain, I'm familiar because I live close to JJ Nearing, and it's got a pretty much all wooden climbing structure and jiggly bridge and all of those kind of fun things for the kids. None of those have, they're all wooden, and they don't have any anti-slip surface on them.
Through the chair again to Councillor Killick, I would say playgrounds are a different beast, and I couldn't comment on a specific play structure, because that's the jiggly bridge and such you're talking about is most likely a play structure. But on all of we went back through our inventory, and we do not have anti-slip strips on any wooden platforms that we have in our inventory right now. So that would be walkways, lookouts, or walk areas within our park system.
Okay, and so this is not an issue that we've seen anywhere before. Then it would be very unique to White Spruce Forest.
I would say that at this time, we haven't had any public concerns brought to our attention to say that this is something that we should deal with a bit differently. We have been tracking public feedback as well as just best practice within the region. And at this time, we wouldn't have advanced it as an administrative project, I would say at this time. So really it's under council direction to implement this in Greylands White Spruce. Yeah, and that brings me to actually it leads into the other scenario. There lots of wooden trails, stairs in the Edmonton River Valley, and I've never seen any anti-slip material on those, and those trails throughout the river system are probably 10 times what we have here, or maybe more. Are you familiar with that, or can you comment on that? Through the chair to Councillor Killick, I can't say for sure they don't have any, but I think in our based on our research when we submitted the BIR in response to this inquiry last fall, we didn't find it was a best practice kind of utilized within the region. Because the other factor I guess to take into account is once it's snow covered, it's not cleared anyhow, so you've got to deal with the snow. This would only really suffice for that short period of time between dry surface and when snow covers on that space.
Okay. And then maybe the last question was this big increase in cost is due, as I understand from the background, or that the contractor has to do the work as opposed to the city, and the structure right now is under that 2-year warranty period. So, the $10,000 increase is primarily driven by having the work done by a contractor.
Through the chair to Councillor Killick, I would say that it's price increases and the fact that the contractor needs to complete the work. It is part of their warranty right now, so it's not we don't officially own it in our capacity to maintain or change it if we want them to continue the warranty. So it's really important for us to keep that warranty intact on that space.
Yeah, thank you. And just last question, has administration received any concerns or comments from residents about slippery surfaces in either White Spruce or just generally in these wooden type boardwalk structures?
At this time, we don't have any tracked on our records. When we were tracking back to see what the public concerns were, we don't have any on record. So for us, it was to continue tracking and seeing if this became an issue. But at this time, we don't have any.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions.
All right, Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
Thank you. So when I look at the fact that it says you can't do anything to November, if we were to just delay implementation till after November, then could staff do it?
Through the chair to Councillor Hughes, we did talk to our staff in public operations because they're the ones who maintain all of our park spaces. Capacity is one of our biggest challenges. So if we were to hold off on it, we would have to see when they had capacity to implement, and it wouldn't be at the full valuation because we'd only have the $2,900 left within the project to be able to do the work. So without an increase of budget, it would be doing it minimally or trying to find out if we could create some capacity at some point, but really capacity is the biggest challenge on that side as well.
Okay, so let's just say that we increased the budget by the extra $300 so we could do both the temporary signage and the anti-slip surfacing, so they're just the material costs. Could we take out the labor costs though if we were just to delay this implementation by a year?
Through the chair to Councillor Hughes, again, it would be at the time that public operations had capacity. So I couldn't make a case for when that would be. I would have to ask Mr. Saunders.
Yeah,
if he
the
could
bottom
go
line
on
is
parameters.
yes to your answer. Once we're out of the warranty period, we can do the work. It's just a matter of prioritization holistically.
Thank you.
And I don't think the council is saying it has to get done this second. It would be like, when can you do it? And then, right? Like it's flexible on that timeline. The other thing we have is when I see that picture, the example of the anti-slip measure. So do we have any other boardwalks like this in St. Albert that do not have any railings that go on for a while? This is the only one I can think of is the White Spruce Forest.
Through the chair to Councillor Hughes, without railings, we do have, trying to think within Grandin, I believe there are some short spans that don't have railings, but I would say the majority do have a railing on it, like at the Grandin Eco Park as well as at the Blessed Lookout. Most of them would have railings, I would suggest. But there probably are some short spans with either Coal Mine Park or along Grandin that might not, and I couldn't guarantee that. I'm not sure if Mr. Cameron has anything to add to that, if he can give me a better inventory or not. But I don't see him popping on, so I'm going to say no. That's what I know to be true right now.
Okay, and the other thing I had was, okay, so if we were to increase that budget from the 3,300 to the 36 to cover it, I realize that there's inflationary costs even if it was delayed. So would 36 cover it, or would you be looking for 37?
Through the chair to Councillor Hughes, if you wanted to take a different approach and just fund for the increase and then let us install them whenever capacity avails itself, I could give you, I would say to if you wanted an answer now, maybe a slight increase would give us some capacity to buy them and then be able to just store them until such time as we have capacity to install them. So right now, I say if we buy them, we could buy them for that cost of the $3,300 that we provided to you.
So it's 33 plus the 32 plus the 34, so that'd be 3,600, yes? And that-
Yes, and through the chair to Councillor Hughes, the signage has already been completed, so that portion of the project's already done.
Sorry, I missed that. I'm sorry, Danielle.
Sorry, the signage has already been completed. It has been removed right now while our developer to the north is working on their project, but we have already completed the signage out of that project as well.
Okay, because Mayor, I'm willing to put forward an alternate motion. I'll send it forward, just to let you know that they do it after the warranty period's finished and for material only, and we just increase that budget by $300 to do it. So I'll send it forward, and if I can bring it forward, that's awesome.
Okay, well, there's still a couple more questions, so we'll go to Councillor Bermansky.
Thank you. Through the mayor to administration. Danielle, I have the question, if you use the same wood on that pathway, like it looks kind of, because the artwork's on it, it's a lighter wood, probably a little bit smoother. It looks different than most of the trails. Like it's more rustic wood with a grip. Like would this get more, as it's worn, would it be less slippery, or if they used a different type of wood because of the art design?
Through the chair to Councillor Bermansky, I'm not aware of them using a different kind of wood. It was a general wood product. I'm assuming it's got some pressure treating to it as well, just to ensure longevity of the space. But I am not aware of them using a specialized kind of wood that would be more slippery than a normal.
Okay, I just thought that perhaps the warranty would cover if it's a wood that's slippery that's not traditionally used, right?
Yeah, no, it is a traditional, what we would use on our other wood structures within our park system.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there any more questions? So you want to propose an amendment, Councillor Hughes?
Just actually an
Or an
alternate
alternate
motion.
motion? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, hold on. For some reason, my sent file was gone. It is that the approved motion PM 24-35 is installed by city staff after November 2024, once the warranty period is expired and the cost of the signage and non-slip safety strips is increased from 3,300 to 3,600.
You have a question about the motion? Okay, go ahead.
And just a question to administration. Just as soon as legal counsel's ready. So I just have a question in relation to the proposed motion. So if this motion, as the alternate motion just put on the floor, if that fails, you would need to go back to the other one and then
That's correct. So there's kind of three options, I guess, as we currently sit. So there's the motion currently put forward by Councillor Hughes, or soon to be put forward, which would delay in time, allow us to prioritize. There's the original, which is the cost increase. And I would offer, if neither of those passes, my recommendation would be to kill it, because putting $3,000 of strips with the contractor is next to pointless.
so, but there has to be a motion on the floor to unfund it. then.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm just asking the series of questions.
Okay. Seeing no more questions. You good with your motion? Yes.
Mayor, actually, could I propose an amendment to this possibly?
Well, let's get it read into the record, and then you can make an amendment for sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. That approved motion PM 24-35 is installed by city staff after November 2024, once the warranty period is expired and the cost for the coverage, signage and the non-slip safety strips is increased from 3,300 to 3,600.
Excuse me, Councillor Hughes.
Yeah.
I have it worded slightly differently up on the
Okay,
screen.
I can, and I'm flexible at Gumby. I will change it to what you suggest at this moment. That the budget relating to PM 24-35 is amended from 3,300 to 36 in order to complete the identified scope of work after the warranty period to be funded by the current capital project. That sounds so much better than me.
Okay, accept that and I'll go to Councillor Jolly.
So I guess my amendment would just be that the motion is changed to cancel the project. However, Marta wants to do that.
Sorry, say that again.
Just that we to cancel it. So to kind of go to that third option, so that if the amendment passes, then we're done. And if it fails, then we'd vote on Councillor Hughes's proposal. Or the original
Oh,
proposal.
I see what you're saying. So it's not really an amendment. It's not an amendment.
Stretch. It's a stretch. If you don't accept it, it's fine.
I feel like I'm gonna have to backtrack because I've already accepted the motion now because I thought you were making an amendment. But knowing your intention, if this passes or fails, I couldn't accept a motion. I'm looking at Marta. That seems reasonable.
So this motion is already on the floor. It's been read into the record. So unless it's a friendly, then I think we have to vote on the motion that's before us right now. And if it fails, then we can present another motion on the table.
Yeah, we'll do it that way. Is that okay, Councillor Jolly? Sorry. Okay. All right, so we're dealing with increasing the budget. Okay. I'll accept it and I'll go to you for opening comments.
Thank you. And I realize that some people are opposed to this project and have been from the beginning. However, this is just about safety. And when you look at the picture they had of that boardwalk, for the example on the backgrounder, if you were to slip, you would fall right off. And it's the same thing with the boardwalk in this case, is that if you slip, you're in the middle of nowhere and you fall, and it's going to be a pretty good fall. And so just from a safety perspective, I just think that we need to recognize that if they're on slippery surfaces, it's not that difficult to install this anti-skid or anti-slip surfacing. And the fact that it hasn't been done in other areas of the city is not really an excuse for why we should not be looking at how we should do this going forward. There may be other areas in the city that also have issues that we should be looking at, but especially areas that do not even have a handrail to hang on to. It's an issue. There's literally nothing for you to hold on to if you were to slip. You're just falling over. We have another smaller area that's a bridge area in that park, which it's a very wide bridge. And even there, if it gets slippery, it's very difficult to even get across. So I just look at this like this is actually just an obvious safety issue that we in the past haven't been addressing, and that going forward we probably should. And seeing that the White Spruce Forest has just brought it to my attention that certainly in this park, and there may be potential for others, it's not a bad thing to put extra safety measures in. Is it extremely cheap? No, it's a few $100 more than what we thought initially at 3,300. Is it cheaper than a lawsuit if someone slips and falls and we decide not to put this in? I would say quite a bit less. And I also don't think it would be right to the person who went through it that we said we're saving $3,300 or $3,600 on a project that we have the money in the budget for, and yet we'd say we're not going to do it. You know, if it was your mother that slipped and fell because we said we didn't want to put it into the budget, I don't know how you'd want to look at that. And I just personally wouldn't want to. So to me, this is just, we've put safety measures in all over the city, sidewalks, bulb curves, so many different measures we've taken into place that have cost a lot more than this. And this is about when you're walking on a wooden structure that is slippery, that we take measures to address it. And at the bare minimum, try to do something to prevent a slip and fall. That's it. Thank you.
Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Certainly, we're introducing a sort of a level of service to our community, and I tend to agree with Councillor Hughes. A safety item here for minimal cost is probably something that we should consider for all of our wooden structures that are subject to moisture or frost, and people have to walk on without any other sorts of supports. So I don't think it's a bad thing. You know, it's interesting. People come to council members for a host of different things to ask council to fund. And whether it's big money or it's small money, council has to make a decision on whether this is right for the community as a whole. And from my perspective, this is not a bad level of service that we should be encouraging for all of our city sort of wooden walkways to include. Now, because other communities don't do that, I'm not sure that that's an argument for not doing it here. I certainly have walked in various areas, Madam Mayor, where they have large steps and going up, even with handrails, and they'll put non-slip surfaces on the stairway. So it's not unheard of. And quite honestly, I think it's not a bad level of service to consider for our community. It is a safety issue. And for $3,600, I mean, I would have voted for it at 13.3, quite honestly, to get it done sooner rather than later. But if we we get it done with city staff, I mean, I think it's kind of an argument that we're not paying for the labor anyway. It's just not extra labor we're paying for. So if we can wait until our city staff can do it at their convenience, or if their work allows, then we'll save the extra $9,700. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Jolly.
Thank you. So I didn't support this when this first passed, and you know, the increase in price hasn't changed my mind, whether it's this amount or the extra 10 grand. But rather than rehash my reasons for opposing the expense, I'd like to share a few quick comments from 5 different residents about this cost increase in project. So the first one, it says that I don't believe boardwalks in Lois Hole, Elk Island, Wagner Natural Area, or Clifford E. Lee have them at a glance. I don't feel they're needed. Another one is usually when slippery, people won't go out if worried about the conditions. Third one is I find this a very costly expense. Really just wear adequate footwear and walk for the conditions. Another resident said, I don't think this is needed. I'm out there in all kinds of weather and never found it slippery except when it's icy in winter, and anti-slip strips won't help then. And the last one is it's not possible that you would even consider spending that amount for something so frivolous. I walk that path all the time and have yet to slip. So those are 5 comments from residents. On the handrail issue, it's not an issue at Lois Hole. There's areas with no handrails. I brought my kids there. I've walked my dog there. It hasn't been a problem in the however many years that's been there. It's not an issue in other parks, as we've heard from residents. In my experience, the anti-slip tape actually increases falls, not because of slips, but because of trips. So something to consider. Councillor Mackay, unintended consequences. So I know this was a tough decision for some, kind of when it was first proposed, and I'm just hoping that we're listening to residents and really deciding whether this is worthwhile to spend our time on this. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Killick?
I think, thank you for all the comments and, listen with an open mind. I certainly was opposed to it at the beginning. It was more around paying for signage when there was clearly already signage there. It's the second time around, opposed to it when I saw what the cost was, to have a consultant come back in and do it. But now it seems like a budget has come way down and we can do it within with our own staff at a time that's convenient. And I am very conflicted because I have walked that path, never in the rain, and never felt that it was slippery. And in fact, I enjoyed the fact that there was no handrail there to obstruct the view. And I just absolutely took that into consideration, in particular when crisscrossing oncoming traffic, mums with baby buggies and strollers and what have you. However, all that being said, I listened very carefully to Councillor Broadhead, and it's a small investment to maybe provide a service level that can maybe make it a little bit safer for others. Although I'm still really struggling that, we have a log play structure by the shelter there that, has a nice slippery log that is 6 feet in the air that we're not going to put slip tape on that. And yet kids are more likely to fall off that play log than they are to fall off the walkway. So we, as well as all of the other wooden structures, we just approved funding for Lois Hole School for a log structure that's not going to have grip tape on it. We've got a beautiful log park in Haverton that is also very slippery when it gets wet. So I'm really struggling on how to approach this one, but maybe erring on the side of caution for a small budget amount. But I just wanted to offer those comments, maybe helpful to other councillors when they come time to vote.
Thank you. Councillor Mackay?
Yeah, you used my examples. You used my examples that I like you. I actually went there yesterday in the rain and just took a look around and kind of surveyed it. And I voted against this during budget, and I think I'm going to remain consistent. And just in response, tort law is such that you could be sued because you have the strips on and you trip on the slips because you weren't anticipating your foot stopping. Tort law is extraordinarily complex, and there's a number of different remedies. So relying just specifically on not having them there isn't really a strong justifiable legal excuse. So but I mean, you've identified, Councillor Killick, all those areas that I saw, like Aberton has a complete wooden playground. And I realize, Councillor Broadhead, you are very articulate in the sense that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't, but at the same time, when do you stop? And so there's the other side of the coin on that argument. So I'm just going to remain consistent. I voted against it because I didn't see this being a relevant service level that we should be doing, because I thought that we would need to potentially then start to apply those strips in multiple locations and on multiple structures. So I don't see anything changing my mind right now.
Thank you, Councillor Bermansky.
Thank you, through administration. I'm going to support this. We're looking at playground now for people with certain disabilities. I mean, there's lots of people that go out and walk that just had a hip replacement. When we're comparing it to like playground items that children would climb on, it's really not the same conversation. And again, seniors, a lot of them do need the balance, the handrail that's not there. So if it can even prevent, such a small amount to even prevent one small accident. And I certainly wouldn't want to be laying in the middle of the bush there on the side of that trail and hope that someone finds me. So I think it's a very, very small ask for safety. I just do. So I'll support this. Thank you.
I love how we're debating and all of us are weighing in. But I'm going to weigh in because Councillor Killick said, I need to know how to deal with this. I'm struggling. I'm gonna coach you a little bit. Follow the example, and it's shocking. I'm gonna actually throw you under the bus because I'm gonna say follow Councillor Broadhead's example. He had a question about inclusive parks and playgrounds. He had an IR. He wants to do it for all of them, change the service level. That's a governance level decision of service levels. Doing one-offs like this is not governance. It's totally acceptable. If somebody came to me and said, let's change the service level of anti-slip on boardwalks, I might support that. And so that's why Councillor Broadhead's approach to the playgrounds is the appropriate way, because now we're looking at a big budget of everything. And we can determine because if we're in for one, we're in for all. If we build another park next week and don't put anti-slip on it, that's opening us up for a lawsuit. So the approach I would suggest to anyone who is really passionate about this kind of topic is find out what it costs to change the service level, because that's what governance does. Doing one-offs is not governance. And I just said that, I apologize, but this is something that I'm really passionate about, is trying to keep this council at the high level where we belong. And debating $3,600 is interesting. It's been super productive and interesting to listen to all of you and your approach, but I would actually suggest that we vote against this one and reapproach this from a governance level, which is a service level. So that's kind of consistently where I'm going to stay. Councillor Hughes, you've had a lot of people talking. I'm sure you got a lot of responses. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. We're only debating this again because the budget increased and we had to. So this is not because we wanted just to have fun. This was the CAO followed direction and it exceeded the budget, and so we brought it forward back to council. So this is why we're here today. When I look at playgrounds and you tell me that there's a bunch of safety issues on playgrounds that have been built, that tells me that maybe we should be looking at safety issues on playgrounds and they're being built. And that's not an excuse for why boardwalks shouldn't actually, and other types of wooden structures shouldn't also have safety equipment on it. So it's two totally different situations, but also we should be looking at it. If we have things that we think are high likelihood of children hurting themselves on, this should be evaluated and not just simply excused for other reasons. This motion is to decrease the budget from what they suggested from the 13,000 back to what the actual costs are only. So if you think that it's not worth $3,600 to get or $32 specifically for this item to get it done, well, then I guess that's your decision. But the reality is that this budget is done to reduce it so that we do not have to have additional labor costs, and even if it involves a delay. The idea is saying, well, I personally walked in the rain and I'm fine, so therefore anyone else under any other weather circumstances would walk in it and they would also be fine, is a very narrow-sighted idea. This isn't just about rain, there's also about frost. If people are walking in the fall or the spring, especially the fall, and you have a lot of frost coming in and they're walking on it, and then surprise, they are now dealing with a situation where they were not expecting it. You can avoid climbing a 6-foot log, but if you're walking on a trail and you get to a spot where it's really slippery and it's covered in frost, it's a different situation. And we also have to just respect that, as we've heard, we keep talking about inclusiveness, and then we say, well, I walked on it, so we're fine, ignoring the fact, as Councillor Mansky said, that there's many people, as seniors or other people who have mobility issues, that may not be able to experience the same level of confidence as you did on that structure. And we've gone to many other lengths to try to increase it, and this is just an obvious one. in the event this passes, I'm happy to bring forward a motion to say, let's look at all the other structures to see which ones would be at high risk to also work at this or develop another standard. But when this came forward in a budget, I saw this was an obvious one that was missing, and it was in the budget to handle it. And so it was within the current budget that was being handled to handle it. So that's why it's brought forward. So this is not about, trying to worry about, we can have another motion about the other bridges that are already in place. And perhaps some of them also should be reevaluated. But we've done one-offs before. The Botanical Park parking lot went into it, and we did it without having a standards for everything else that went into it. So sometimes you see and address an issue as it comes up, and then we will worry about the other ones as they come up as well. So I'm just hoping, council, that we recognize this is not a massive increase to the budget. This is, again, same intentions we had before. And when you're trying to figure out what the intention is, the intention behind this is safety. So could someone trip? Yeah. Can someone trip on anything? Yeah. But what is the intention when we do or don't do something? Are we making it safer by not putting it on there, or safer by putting it on there? And if the intention is that it'll be far safer for the most people to have it on, then we should put it on, as opposed to saying that was a one-off and someone may or may not happen on this. That's the intention whenever we do the city's projects, is what is the intention of the end goal for the majority of the people when we do or don't do something. And when I think of the anti-slip being put on, the intention would be to increase the safety ability for the majority of the people using that structure. That's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Call for the vote. Voting's closed. And that motion fails with Councillor Romansky, Broadhead, and Hughes in support. All right. Should I go to you, Councillor Jolly?
Sure. If Marta has a motion that I could put on the table.
Councillor Jolly, I believe alternative 1, which is to do no further work related to this PM, is the motion that would accomplish what you would be seeking.
Great, thanks. So that no further work be undertaken with respect to PM 2435.
Okay, let's get it on the screen. All right, I accept that. Do you have any opening comments, Councillor Jolly?
No, I think I said enough.
Anyone else? All right. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Broadhead. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the necessity. I don't know if it's a necessity of this motion, but it's certainly the outcome of the previous vote. But I actually believe that the level of service that would apply to all of our wooden walkways in our community might be something worth investigating. And so, Councillor Hughes, I'd be more than happy to work with you on such a motion. It's if you just do some work, there's a lot of reasons why you apply non-slip surface material, whether that be a tape or whether it be other kinds of materials to keep people from slipping. I mean, we do it in our bathtub, and we do it on all sorts of stuff to keep people from falling. And so, and there's a reason why we do that, because nobody, when you get to be, like if you're 6 months old, a fall doesn't really mean much. When you're 70 years old and you fall down, it means a whole lot. And so we have a breadth of citizens in our community, and we should do what we need to do. Anyway.
So Councillor Broadhead, are you speaking towards canceling the project, or?
Yeah, no, I'm speaking roundabout to
Okay.
this particular motion. I'm going to support it because of the previous vote, but that doesn't mean I think that the item should drop. That's what I'm trying to say.
All right, Councillor Hughes, comments.
Yeah, I'm still not even going to support this, even in, I realize what's happened, but I also just really do not support the idea of just disregarding the importance of safety. I will be bringing forward a motion this meeting that Marta, you can make it sound intelligent later on. To have a standards being put in place for all the wooden structures in the city, and we can have that debate then. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything to close, Councillor Jelly? Okay, call for the vote. Voting's closed. And that motion passes with Councillor Bermansky and Hughes opposed. That leads us to civic and external agency updates. So what order do we want to go today? How about you first, Councillor Jolly?
My Homeland Housing meeting is on Thursday. Youth Advisory Committee was great. Just kind of more of the same, discussing some of the volunteer opportunities that are coming up. I know kind of everyone's really excited about the summer, and we are not meeting over the summer. I think that's the first time the Youth Advisory has taken a break.
Okay. And then I'll go to you, Councillor Bermansky.
I have no updates. My meetings are 3 in a row in the next day and 2.
Busy week. Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I say the only update I have is that 2 weeks ago I attended the Canadian Urban Transit Association Conference Spring Symposium in Halifax, and represented municipal councils actually across the nation on the executive of that particular agency. What was interesting was just the common experience of municipalities across the nation in dealing with increased costs of providing public transit services. And quite honestly, the agency or the association have made a concerted effort with the federal government to advance the permanent transit fund from 26 to 24 and 25, simply to allow us to start to build our applications. Sometimes building those applications takes time, and working through the process, receiving federal money is always a labor of love. However, there was a hard, fast, cold no from the feds. So they it's the reality of life now. And so we'll see what happens when the election is over, and we'll see what happens, which government holds office at that time. If it's the current government, I'm sure we'll go ahead with the permanent transit fund. If it's a changing government, we'll see what their priorities are. But I'm hopeful that they will see the necessity of supporting public transit across the nation.
Saw you on the news last week.
Well, thank you. It was an interesting thing, and thanks to staff and Mr. Fletcher for giving me some assistance on that. I appreciate that.
Could I ask Councilor
ahead,
Broadhead a question? Two quick questions. One, you mentioned the rising cost of buses, and we're seeing prices come in, or I think you indicated that at the conference prices were coming in 20, 30, 40% higher than what we had previously budgeted for. So what is the average? And two things, and we St. Albert are chasing a very busy bus building schedule. You know, Toronto's ordering 400 buses, or Montreal's ordering 200, Vancouver's ordering hundreds, and we're trying to squeeze in an order for 8 new buses. So where did you get a sense at the conference of how much a regular bus has gone up over the last couple of years, and how do we fit in to that? And then second question is, I've heard there's not going to be any diesel buses around in a couple of years. Manufacturers are shifting to electric 100%. We're not going to be able to buy, and that they are almost double the cost. Could you speak to those?
Yeah, it's funny because the questions you asked were actually the ones asked at the conference. The experience of the total bus cost is around 12.5%. I believe that's what we experienced in terms of our actual cost of the bus. However, the cost of the bus is not the only cost increase. You know, just the maintenance costs, the cost of parts and the consumables like oil filters, for example, up 30%. You know, a turbo that you have to replace and an engine rebuild is up 40%. Those are the sorts of costs that come through to a municipality that aren't even included in rolling stock. Now, to your point around zero emission buses and the move to decarbonize the fleet, I mean that's the intent of virtually every government across the nation. You know, in Quebec, it's all about electric buses. They've got lots of hydro. In Alberta here, it might be hydrogen because we got lots of hydrogen. But the question is that how do you introduce that technology at a cost that we can afford? And that's why the Permanent Public Transit Fund and granting opportunities from other levels of government, because ultimately we'll be up against the cash crunch. And how do we do it here? And that's why I keep going to that conference and going to the advocacy days in Ottawa, is to make the case clear to the policymakers at that level that the decisions made here actually affect people, and they need to understand that. And so great questions. I wish I had better answers. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Hey, Councillor Hughes.
The only meeting that I had was the internal audit, which we just approved for the work plan. So, and the other audit that we approved that's going forward, we'll be getting those responses back probably early September, coming to council by October to know how to improve our IT situation. That's it.
All right, Councillor Mackay.
Policing committee met last week, right after our committee of the whole meeting. So I'm gonna figure a way to either change
Long
the
day
length
for
of
you.
our meetings or change the date, because I was in that chair from 8:45 till 8:30 at night. But it was actually a very interesting one. We had a presentation by a fire prevention officer in relation to our drone, and I wasn't aware that we actually had a drone, and it's a significant drone. It's not like one you can go to London Drugs and buy. It's specially built with a array of infrared and other cameras that make it extraordinarily useful for not only fire situations, but also has been used in search and rescue operations as well. And it's a heck of a lot cheaper than actually buying a helicopter. So
and you would know.
Yeah, and I would know. And so would CAO, although he buys tanks, he doesn't buy too many helicopters. Anyways, probably about as useful. The other thing that we had, excuse my voice, we had a presentation on Computer Integrated Information and Dispatch System. SIDS is the acronym, and for some unknown reason, we only have access to two. And what that is that basically allows our administration staff and it allows our sworn staff to create file numbers, search outside of their vehicles. We have, as I said, we have two at our detachment inside our detachment. Sorry, pardon me. But for example, Strathcona County has 5, and we have tried, and we, by being the RCMP detachment, has tried to access one, and actually the one that they did have up front for the use of administrative staff had to be moved into the back because it was needed more in an operational role. So I guess the issue is access to licensing, and it's nothing to do with our IT system. It's all to do with the RCMP IT system. And we have tried for about, I guess, 24 months to get on the list to get this computer system, but unfortunately it's something that's not there. So the policing committee actually sent a letter. I'll send it to you as well, and maybe what we can do is send a letter on our behalf as well. And it's basically, so it tracks anything from operational gear, equipment, firearms dispatched in real time, and also like I mentioned before, it's something that they use to generate file numbers and the like. So I think it's administrative and operational necessity, and I'm not sure why we haven't been successful, other than potentially there's limited number of licenses available in the entire province, and it's just a numbers game, and we just have to wait our turn. But anyways, that went out, and then the rest was in relation to kind of review of we did stand up a policing committee booth in the Lifestyle Expo. It was extremely popular. We basically got rid of all of the swag, and as usual, bags are extremely popular. So and the swag was information items, and I shouldn't use the word swag because people think that they're tidbits and things like that, but it was actually comment cards, and it was actually lock up your valuables, and also all your valuables have been removed. So placards and things like that were in, and they basically went, even the French ones went. So it was obviously something that was of interest, and we did receive the comments, which I did relay earlier in relation to some of the concerns that residents have. And it's not unsurprising. It's all about noisy vehicles. It's all about traffic concerns. There was some concerns in relation to crime and disorder, but they weren't the majority. So it was actually a very interesting time. So the other one's just related to what some of the reports that you received information on here. The other thing is last week, I spent 2 days at an offsite planning with Arrow Utilities in my role as chair. And we actually held it in St. Albert. And we actually, part of that was a tour of the wastewater pump station that's on the corner of Sturgeon Road and Sir Winston Churchill. And looking at it, you wouldn't know that that's 5 stories underground.
You went down in it?
I went all the way down,
Cool.
and then I needed to have Medivac to get me up but interesting construction too, because it's so wet. They actually built one ring, pushed it down, built the other ring, pushed it down, built the other ring. So it's basically floating.
Built by a St. Albert company.
Yeah,
Alberta.
and actually they've maintained this. It has 3 of the largest pumps in North America, 750 horses. And it has 2 new pumps of about 300 horsepower that they need because the others big pumps cycle on and drain the drywall so fast that it's just not efficient, and it would burn out components of the big pumps. But it's something interesting, and it's something that we can offer to the council members if they're interested. It's actually fascinating. If you think about it, we are one of the largest, we get 33 megaliters a day, 33 million megaliters a day. So if you think about it, an average Olympic sized swimming pool is 2 megaliters. And so
How did it smell down there?
it doesn't smell at all down there, actually. It smelled a little bit worse outside than it did down.
There you go.
But that's because where the holding tanks are, is that little building on the outside of it. So you don't really smell anything inside at all. It's actually extraordinarily clean. But it's something that I don't think a lot of residents, they drive by it every day. And yes, there is sometimes there's odor concerns. But it's a fascinating, if you think about the engineering that's required to move, because it picks everything up from Morinville all the way out to Parkland. It takes Spruce Grove and Stony Plain and pumps it through to the plant out by Fort Saskatchewan. So anyways, it's actually very interesting, but that's my update. Sewage has become interesting. I know. Pretty sad.
Do you think there would be an opportunity for council to tour it?
I just offered that.
Did you offer? Okay, because I was there when it was open, but I haven't been in there since. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just offered that, and it's
Cool.
you just have to wear closed-toe shoes is all,
Yeah.
and they give us the rest of the PPE.
Right, Councillor Killick.
Thank you. And I just checked my spam folder. Councillor McKay had promised to invite me to that tour, and if it
the invite must have got lost in my spam folder, so maybe next time.
Well, you have to be a member of the commission.
Oh,
But we did see some of your stuff coming down the hill.
okay. On that note, Edmonton salutes. We had a great meeting April 26th. Reviewed all of the operational files, budget, recruitment, sponsorship, etc. Everything's on track. We had two great updates from the new commander, Canadian commander, that is going to be going to Riga in Latvia to head up the steadfast defender contingent of all of the NATO members that are supporting in that steadfast defender mission. And it was amazing that when you think the base that all of these troops are being deployed to in Latvia is Riga, is almost the same distance as the city of Kiev is to Moscow. So they are our troops that we are sending overseas are as close to the front line in a command and training operation as Kiev is to Moscow, where bombs are falling. And to think that this is just a training mission is absolutely not the case. And I am a proud Canadian that says we are sending a Canadian commander overseas to lead part of that initiative. We also learned that there is a new Korean War Memorial. Many people don't know that the Korean War Memorial is actually in Banff, and it's there because we had some soldiers that were from Banff that went and fought in the Korean War, and that the Korean memorial is kind of tucked away in Banff. So if you're ever there, it's probably a good thing to go take a look at. And to note that the Korean government is sending over a much improved, larger memorial at their cost for installation in Banff. Unfortunately, it's right in the middle of July peak season, so it's almost impossible to get a hotel room out there. But I would encourage anybody that ever goes to Banff to kind of search that out and take a look. Again, remembering that Canadians died in the defense of Korea. I had the privilege and honor, along with Councillor Broadhead, on May 11th, attending the Yellow Ribbon Gala, which is a major fundraiser for the Military Family Resource Center, which provides support to troops here and spouses that are left behind as troops are deployed overseas. So it supports their families, kids, etc., and is just a great charity. Again, I was pleased to be able to attend that on May 11th to represent St. Albert, along with Councillor Broadhead. The next meeting of Edmonton Salutes is being in person. It's hosted out in Strathcona County. Big shout out to Strathcona County and Councillor Katie Bokenfor for hosting us out there on May 24th. In terms of CSAC, we had our meeting on April 23rd. Council is aware the community capital grants were approved for by council for Lois Hole and St. Albert Judo, but also under community events under the new granting policy. We had the grants for events that were approved just by committee, and that was Coal Mine Church Garden Gathering, being BMX Cup Race, and Latin Fest. So they were approved purely within the committee under the new policy. And then just again, under CSAC, we've had a number of agency tours at Neutral Ground, which is a real eye-opener. Very busy place, and an awesome chat with Richard that's been running that from kind of ground zero in a year, and he's got almost 40 or 50 people were attending that session on the weekend. Also toured the Bereavement Fellowship, and we had a tour of St. Albert Further Education for any of our members on the CSAC committee. So great all around to see the great work that charities and nonprofits are doing within the city. That's my updates.
Awesome. Okay. You guys are busy.
Do you have an announcement if I could?
We are into information request, notice of motion and announcements. Councillor Hughes just sent in two. Does she need to read those into the record? Go ahead, Councillor Hughes.
So the IR is that can you provide clarity on why the electric bill for streetlights has increased beyond the budgeted amount for Q1 2024, as mentioned in the quarterly report? And the other one is, and Marta, please feel free to make it sound intelligent. That anti-slip standards and a capital budget case are developed to address all at-risk city-owned wooden platforms, boardwalks, bridges, and structures, and are brought forward to council by November 5th, 2024.
Okay, and you had an announcement, Councillor Killick?
A good news. Thank you. Team play here. And we all got the memo yesterday. I think it's regarding the solar production, and just to highlight that memo really lays out that our total, not year to date, but total to date production of solar energy in the city of St. Albert is 5 million kilowatt hours, or 5,000 megawatts, however you like to measure that. But it just really goes. I've seen a number of municipalities make announcements of their production numbers, and they don't come close to what St. Albert has produced over the lifetime of these solar panels. So it deserves recognition, and it really, I hope we also put something out on our public facing websites
I think there was something in the memo that said they were gonna
do that. Yeah.
Columns, because I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and numbers we should be proud of in the city. So just a shout out on that one.
Councillor Romansky, go ahead.
Thank you. It's sort of an announcement, or actually an appreciation for, it's related to the community services and all the public events they've been doing. I went on the mental health walk last Friday night, and that was put on by the city. And I want to commend the work they did in that. It was the most beautiful evening. People were roasting hot dogs in Lions Park, and there was the poet laureate there, and there was music there, and it was the crowd that attended that were just in a state of such comfort and beauty along the river valley in the evening. There was people laying along the river, some fishing. It was the most calm, beautiful evening. So again, I just want to thank and commend staff for putting that together as well. I think in this time when a lot of people are feeling they need that, relaxing mental health night, it helped a lot of people. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Awesome. And I feel like we don't have any submitted IRs or PMs. Okay, that's what I thought. All right, anyone else? Seeing none, we're going in camera for a land matter for 12.1. Does someone want to make the motion? Councillor Broadhead, go ahead. Oh, sorry, Councillor Killick. I looked left. Yeah. No, it's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That council move in camera for discussion with administration regarding the land matter pursuant to sections 24(1)A and 25(1)C of the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act.
All right, accept that call for the vote. That passes unanimously. All right, I will see you guys all in council lounge.